but not too delayed after all. And off we go, and the attacks do come, and it's Manuele Tarozzi on the wheels, with Bardiani actually launching 3 riders. Polti Visit Malta with 2, and Alpecin Premitech, who don't have a sprinter to look after as well. Uno X now don't have a sprinter. So already, I think we've got more attackers than we thought we'd get. EF also. And you can see Lidl Trek rider there, just trying to control this breakaway, because I don't think they would have expected 8 riders off the front.
No, what a surprise, no? We were almost scared, you know, that be just no attacks at all, but Bardiani...
There is a tailwind today. I don't know if that figures into the, you know, makes it a little bit easier for the potential break. Fabio van der Bosche, Soudal Quickstep is trying to control that one as well and bring it back, but yeah, 3-up attack from Bardiani.
Sevilla, Maestre as well.
Yep.
Uno X, the teams who have lost their sprinters, or even they don't feature as a sprinter.
So Premitech, Alpecin Premitech, and Uno X Mobility.
Again, another attack from Polti Visit Malta. I think it was Sevilla going off, but speed is going to be very high. This is the how the view going to look like for the riders till the entrance of Milan. Countryside. Manuel Gebreus-Gabir controlling, Ryan Mullen as well. Those 3 riders that they're just to control the any sure just smart group goes clear. I think they would like to have 4 riders, maybe, because now Fabio van den Bosch is shutting down an attack of 5 riders. So, you know, actually every team start today with the plan in mind to, okay, this amount of riders is okay with us, and you know, the more we go into the race, the more we're going to realize what is the ideal number for each team. But I think they want to have as little as possible breakaway. As
Torconi,
Zoff, hoping somebody will rejoin Mirko Maestri. Then another rider from Alpecin Premitech, followed by another Polti Visit Malta.
So Jonas Haynes, I think, again from Alpecin Premitech.
Uno X, Tarozzi in the background, another Polti Visit Malta, but this is too big and they won't allow.
3 Polti Visit Maltas, 3 Bardianis. That's just a little bit too greedy there for the 2 Italian teams, but they're making a lively start nonetheless. We're actually going to be in Milan pretty rapidly today. They enter the circuit and enter Milan with still 73.5 kilometers to go. So, you know, within about 70, 80 kilometers, they'll be in Milan. It'll be that quick.
Very disappointed. Marcus Hulgaard is complaining with Bardiani. Indeed, too greedy. You cannot slot 4 riders in the breakaway. It's a duo from Polti Visit Malta on the go.
Yes, Maestri and Tonelli. Marcellusi, is it?
Yeah, that's the style of Marcellusi, unmistakable.
So that's 1 Bardiani and 2 Poltis. It's the wrong Bardiani. I mean, with respect to Marcellusi, that sounds entirely unfair, but they really wanted Tarozzi up the road today.
Yeah, because Tarozzi can have, you know, finally a chance to get some kilometer in the breakaway classification. As
Dveznes
was clear this time, the peloton seems like quite happy with him. Could be
good ally, though. Strong rider.
Yeah, he won already. Don't be fooled by the graphic. His surname is indeed Lavik Dveznes.
Yeah. So that'll be 4, which it feels like is the maximum, but
the back
is it Alpecin Premitech are attacking again.
Yeah, Movistar as well is just on the wheel. I will not be impossible to see a Milesi going on the offense today. But that's the more we go into the race with the days, you know, the harder it is to shut down the gap. So today, whatever the size of the breakaway is going to be, always kept at bay, because you know, it's going to be hard to rejoin the front of the race. You know, the fatigue start to piling up in the legs of the riders, and the more we go into, you know, today in Rome, the harder it is to shut down a gap. So they want to control it. Rest assured that the breakaway is a manageable size and gap as well.
Maestri, Tonelli, Marcellusi and Frederic Dveznes, and I think that's it. Feels like the break has gone there. Bardiani having to settle for Marcellusi's presence, though, outnumbered, as often before, actually, on this Giro. Polti Visit Malta have been up front with big numbers, outnumbering at least, and overshadowing the achievements of Bardiani to this point. Soudal Quickstep, Unibet Rose Rockets, NSN, Lidl Trek, one more Bardiani rider goes or tries to go, but Soudal Quickstepper straight onto him there. It was a little bit overly ambitious there, 10 seconds. You see as Alpecin Premier Tech as well, trying to launch up on the left-hand side of the road. It's Tobias Bayer looking for a bit of space.
They'll be shut down by Ryan Mullen. Saw the rider coming as DSM appears also.
Yeah, DSM, Picnic Postenel. It is quite funny how the professional peloton still refers behind the scenes to that team as DSM.
Yeah, I mean it's sticked.
It's stuck, hasn't it? They're not paying for sponsorship, but they're still getting a lot of airtime.
As well as J. Colula will always be Greenwich.
No attempt from Jonathan Narvaez to get in the breakaway today. The manager Camino is just comfortably in the wheels. There he is.
It would be something if you will try again today to go on the offense. You just have a 1 point ahead of Paul Manier in the classification.
Well, if he moved, which is not going to, Soudal Quickstep would not let him move at all. They'd be straight onto him. So it looks like it's Tonelli, Maciulussi, Maestri and Frederick Tresnes.
It is Bais instead. We have a confirmation now. We haven't seen the numbers yet, but it's again ever-present Mattia Bais.
That would make more sense than Tonelli actually, because Bais is figures quite highly in the intermediate sprint standing. He's in third place on 36 points. Oh, and it all kicks off again behind. It's Alpecin Premier Tech, but they're marked by NSN, by Ryan Mullin, and by I think it's Fabio van den Bossche again from Soudal Quickstep. Very, very hard now for Alpecin Premier Tech to launch, and it's a 34-second gap. So a little bit overly ambitious from Alpecin Premier Tech, but they have been instructed to get in the break, and there are still 3 of their jerseys represented up towards the front. So I think we're not done with the Alpecin attacks. It looks like the next one might be coming up on the right-hand side of the peloton.
It's Luca Vergallito. But probably they lost the right momentum to go because the gap is quite big already, 49 seconds. And look at the back, how many jerseys from Soudal Quickstep, Lidl Trek, and as well Unibet Rose Rockets.
And Groupama. I mean, there are, you name it, there are 7 or 8 teams policing this breakaway at the moment. Still, Vergallito's just riding on the front rather than attacking, just to keep that time gap limited. And maybe Alpecin Premier Tech aren't done yet with their attacks. Still got 2 riders, haven't they? In around about 8th place, 9th place, 10th place. So there could be an Alpecin 2-up attack imminently. If Vergallito can bring that time gap down a little bit. He's done a good job. He's taken 5 seconds, down to 34 seconds. And as you can see, Vergallito at the moment is moving at 51 kilometers an hour on the front, and another second. Trying to close that gap to a bridgeable target. The absolute maximum that they could even hope to try and get across it would be 30 seconds.
Use the right move of to go in the breakaway today. Seems like Price Petersen has just let it go.
Mattia Bais. I'll tell you what's confused us. Mattia Bais has taken his plaster off his chin. It's so recognisable, hasn't he, for his... But whatever little cut he had there is now healed, so it's a bit harder to pick pace. 31 seconds.
Yeah, still Vergallito thing at the front, ready to be seen if they want to launch an attack.
Well, if they don't, what's he doing it for?
Yeah.
2 superstars of the peloton, 4 stage wins at this Giro d'Italia between them.
And a very different size of riders.
13 stages in their career between them as well. Narvaez and Ganna.
And Rochas, the back of the peloton. For a lot of riders, are going to be just a day to cruising and trying to recover from the effort they've been doing in the last days.
Well, it's only a short stage today, and 10 kilometers are done. And the attack has been launched now by Alpecin, but you can see Jasper Stuyven is straight onto that rider from Alpecin. And it's Price Petersen again, the Danish time trialist.
Yeah, definitely. He has 4 riders at the back. They're going to try to prevent this to go, as Fabio van den Bosch is going to try to block in the road. to be seen if it's just showing that everybody's there. You should stop continuing as Movistar also leading the peloton, followed by Unibet Rose Rockets.
That's actually the blue jersey of Yardi van der Lee, isn't it?
Oh yeah, from far it looked really like Unibet Rose Rockets, as you see 2 positions behind of him.
Second place for Yardi van der Lee in the blue jersey. He is second place in the King of the Mountains competition. And finally, Jonas Vingegaard, even though he still leads the King of the Mountains, is no longer in blue. Yardi van der Lee is wearing it on his behalf. Those are the standings there. Big gap between Vingegaard and the next best placed rider, van der Lee.
And by the action of Price Petersen,
23 seconds.
Yeah, the gap has gone down. It might be reopening up a little bit of the bagarre and the attacks, as the Alpecin Premier hasn't give up yet.
You've got to watch, see whether they've got any teammates moving up a little bit closer. It looks like Jonas Hehn might be getting a bit closer, because this tactic only makes sense if they're going to try and launch a rider across the gap. He's not doing it for no reason. But between them, those 2 riders from Alpecin Premier Tech have shaved half of the advantage of the 4 riders at the front. It's down to 23 seconds now. It's good for the race, this. It's keeping. Oh, it's not good for the peloton. I'm sure they're hating it at 55 kilometers an hour, but it's making the race much more dynamic than we might have expected.
Maestri, or with his nickname Paperino, Donald Duck.
Is that right?
Yeah, in Italian it's Donald Duck. Her name is Paperino, little duck, exactly what it means. And yet again another attack. I think it's still. I
don't know. Groupama are doing. I think they're riding it down and joining in. It's just not getting clear, are they?
The always jersey of EF Education Easy Post also in control for Maris Mikkels, and as well the presence of net company Ineos, surprisingly in there. They don't feature a main sprinter, but they can have some good opportunities with Ben Turner. Finally, if he gets a little bit of the lucky on his side.
There's a bit of gesticulating going on. Is that Sobrero who moves to the front?
Yeah, I think they
deliberately just pulling on the brakes there and telling him to stop.
They've been annoyed by the attacks by Alpecin. I think everybody was just hoping and expecting a very easy day, but it's not happening for the moment.
What a statement Quebec Jabir and Sobrero are making there, and Derek G. West. Pretty much the whole team, bar Giulio Ciccone now and Jonathan Milan, moving to the front, blocking the road along with Sudan Quickstep. You shall not pass any longer. There's a couple of Bardianis there, just lurking around, aren't there? Filippo Magli and Luca Paletti. If they sensed an opportunity, they might move again, Bardiani.
Well, if you think now cycling is hard, you cannot imagine how it was in 1914. And a 420-kilometer stage.
A 2-day stage. Started on the 24th of May, finished on the 25th of May. No such thing as aero had ever been invented back then, or even discussed. It was just pure strength and grit. Also, you have to bear in mind, on those big mountain stages, in the pre-war iterations of the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France, there was no freewheel on the gears either. In fact, the bikes only had 2 gears. You could change gear, but in order to change gear, you had to come to a complete stop, pop out your rear wheel, flip it round, and put it back in. That was the only way you could. Your 2 gears were basically flat or uphill. That was it. And on the long descents from the big mountains, you'd have to put your legs out to the side because the pedals would be spinning, because there was absolutely no freewheel.
That was pure madness, if you would think now, on gravel roads.
On gravel roads.
And since time are definitely different, as you just read, under the snow, because of course much colder weather than the riders experiencing now, as Price Petersen is still there. He was about to launch an attack. He's there in the 4th line on the right. I think now they're going to just slow down more and more, as all the teams featuring a sprinter, they're up there because they don't want anybody to go and try to move again.
Well, Alpecin Premier Tech do have a sprinter to ride for today in Jensen Plowright. He's not a specialist, you would say, and he's never won a big bunch sprint, but he's more than capable of doing a good ride and placing himself in the top 10, top 5, or even a podium.
Yeah, but in order to do so, I think for him, the more chaotic is the sprint, you know, the much more and less straightforward the way it's approached by the other teams, the better it is. That's why his team, I think, they can have a double intention in there. To go hard, you know, to make the race harder and a little bit more uncontrollable, and at the same time to create a little bit of chaos in between and among the other teams. So now the gap is about to reach 1 minute. Those are the hills of the Oltrepo Pavese. So Lombardia's, the whole region sits above the River Po, except for Pavia and Voghera, where the race started, and this is called Oltrepo, beyond the Po.
I was fascinated to read on our screens about the Voghera pepper. That's a very specific type of pepper, very sweet, that Voghera is known for. And also some quite delicate wines in this area as well.
Yeah, it's been often like relegated as not the best quality of wine in the past, but thanks also to, under the impulse of renowned enologists and wine producers, has been shifted, especially the sparkling wine are extremely good. They're using the champenois method, not the for those who love wine know definitely what we're talking about. There is the champenois method, or the how is that the other one? I don't remember. They use in Trentino. It's in I know it's Italian, but couldn't really remember in English.
I don't know. That's outside my comfort zone there, Jacopo. What is the champenois method?
So basically
traditional.
The traditional method. You have the fermentation of in the bottle, and you twist them, and then you have the sbroccatura in Italian, where you basically ice the very top, because the bottles are looking down, so all the deposits, they stay there. You ice them with how do you call a liquid azoto, I don't know in English actually.
You freeze it.
You freeze it, and then you break the bottle and you take it out.
So all the impurities come out that way.
And while the other method is like you have a giant silos where you just create the fermentation and then you put it in the bottle just one time.
That's cheating.
You can have good wine as well with
That's cheating.
Where I come from is we cheat, definitely.
Sounds like a very labour-intensive process, the traditional method of fermenting in the bottle. And
especially because the very small winery, they have a man who's going to each bottle and turning by 45 degrees every time slot.
Yep.
They're doing by hands. So there's giant, lines of bottles looking down to the core, and there is a guy 45 degrees. Tuck, 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 each one.
Nu zijn we live. Nu allemaal. Rit 14, 15, 16. We zijn er bijna. Vandaag sprinten.
The only thing I understand is all straight for a lot of kilometers in a sprint. Be good to see if he's going to be involved. He had a very good finish, Toonart. Not the most youngest of the peloton, but as 32 years old and marking his very first season on the road, coming from the cyclocross. Second in the stage of Novi.
Yeah, very impressive Grand Tour debut from Toonart with that second place. He'll be sprinting for sure today on that kind of evidence, that kind of form. Be interesting to see how he places. Of course, they came to Lotto Intermarché, came to the race with Arnaud Delis, fresh from a victory in Belgium as well, but half their team was sick. And Delis was definitely off colour, suffered his way through the opening few stages, and then had to step off, having never recovered. As they start riding already, 1 minute and 57 seconds.
The vineyards we were referring to.
So some of our team in the television trucks are indeed from the Netherlands and from Belgium, and they've translated Toonart's words there for us. Said it's going to be a hot sprint today, and they'll hope to do a good effort.
Well, quite obvious. I do agree with him.
So if you thought Lombardia was completely flat, you'd be a little bit wrong. There are a few little lumps and bumps towards the south of the region.
Yeah, because all the mountains are definitely on the north area, close to the Alps. Just featuring Passo dello Stelvio is in Lombardia, for instance. Or the mighty Spluga Pass, a lot of border, sharing the border with Swiss. But yeah, the south is pretty much flat, except for this area that shares the same, it's Apennini basically, because they are closer. It's this little, like a peninsula, if you just look at the region of Lombardia that heads and sits between Liguria, Piemonte and Emilia-Romagna.
So it's where the Apennines just peter out into the Po River Valley, just a spur of the mountain range.
Yeah. Very gentle climbs, as you see, because it's not yet the real Apennine. It's kind of, we have the pre-Alps, as we call it in Italy. We don't have the pre-Apennini, just Apennini, but yeah, definitely it's the same kind of climbs. It's not very high, not very hard indeed, but you could not imagine how hard it is to race in this area. There are some U23 important races. At the back, they started. As we said, they won't give the breakaway too much time, too much gap. As curiously, a couple of faulty Visit Malta in there. Just sitting behind the riders controlling today's stages, Aiko, Bastians, and I think it might be De Vries once again from Unibet Rose Rocket.
Derek G. West is also in fourth wheel there, as if he might actually put his nose in the wind, but certainly showing intention there from Lidl Trek, representative of their team, the Canadian national champion.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if they will use Derek G after a stage like yesterday to control today for Milan. But nonetheless, he's there, and later on, I think we could expect from Gebrich Gabir doing his duty. But also the other day, in the sprint to Napoli, my bad, it took him a while before they start riding the Lidl Trek team. They haven't been successful so far in this Giro d'Italia. The best results were they came indeed from Jonathan Milan, fourth in the opening stage in Burgas, and then second with a little bit of disappointment because he had a real wheel spinning in the stage of Sofia. But then he was caught up in a crash in Napoli, and since then there were not one single sprint.
And as for the rest of their team, well, Giulio Ciccone has been extremely aggressive throughout the race. He's been on the front foot, he's been attacking, but he's not really found the winning formula or found the right moments or the right move. The man with the red Dossard number on, who won the Combativity Award, the Fighting Spirit Prize yesterday, is appropriately enough Davide Piganzoli. There he is, just bunny hopping over the speed bump there, and I think the public has chosen exactly the right rider there. Yeah, an amazing ride, Piganzoli.
And he received also the compliments of Sepp Kuss. Yesterday, me and Ned, we were first a little bit surprised, you know, that Sepp Kuss wasn't the last rider to be deployed by Visma Leasebike, and he was indeed. Piganzoli did an amazing job. If you look also the damage that has been done compared to Sepp Kuss, it was 10 times higher. He managed to finish fourth nonetheless in the stage, and has moved himself 10th in the GC. I know the team have very high hope for Piganzoli for the future, seeing him a possible GC winner in the future. So I think as a first step, you know, first approach, you know, was coming from Polte Visit Malta, but the resources also that a team such Visma Leasebike have such a, you know, nowadays widely recognized a knowledge in how to prepare a Grand Tour. Is paying off very good for him, and why not in the near future we might expect a lot from the young Italian rider.
Yeah, it's really interesting that he is racing on after his work is done in the mountain stages and trying to place as highly as he can in the general classification, learning how to do that. It's a huge extra responsibility and a huge extra physical burden for him. It's very interesting sort of team tactic with one eye on his development in the years to come.
I mean, of course, if the race situation asks for a sacrifice from Piganzoli, that, you know, they have to sacrifice him in order to chase a dangerous rider or whatsoever, you know, that the race itself would present, they will do it, and even like damaging him in a way. It's not the right word, but like forcing him almost to drop off the top 10. But if the situation allows them to do so, they will try to protect him as well, just using him at the very end. And I think yesterday, when Vingegaard launched the attack, the Piganzoli job was not yet finished. He still have a lot of energy to use, and that's why I think he managed himself to be fourth, because his job was started in about 1 kilometer, but he did already so much damage that Vingegaard just decided to go, but allowing Piganzoli to just remain in touch with Felix Gall briefly, and then later on with Jai Lane and Giulio Pellizzari.
It was almost as if Piganzoli was a little bit surprised to see Jonas Vingegaard attacking at the point that he did. He kind of looked around and went, "Oh, now is it?" Yeah, as you say, it felt like his job wasn't yet complete. So he obviously had more energy reserves and could ride on as effectively as he did. Really eye-catching performance from Davide Piganzoli, and an eye-catching Giro from him.
Minute 26, the peloton is still losing a little bit of ground, not much, as they are in Stradella, not far from where I live actually. 32 degrees, 40% humidity. It's a hot day.
Average speed so far, 51 kilometers an hour.
This is nowadays become the standard to ride in the flat, 50 per hour.
Again, they've got a little bit of a tailwind today.
Yeah,
it's definitely helping them.
I think it's like we said in Italy, it's raining on wet roads. You know, it does just because they're strong. I don't think they win. Maybe it's the extra kilometer that's helping them, but they're already quite fast, even without the wind.
Well, there he is in pink, the man who we've seen down the years, day after day after day at the Tour de France in yellow, and at the Vuelta in red. Fully embracing the pink, isn't he? Pink bar tape, pink mitts, pink helmet, pink socks. And there's the second-placed rider in the general classification. For how much longer? That's anyone's guess, I think. But there are some massive, massive days still to come in this Giro.
And for the very first time in the Maglia Bianca, it belongs to him since the stage in Potenza, but he never had the chance to wearing it. Well, a little bit of stats here to say how important and how not easy what Jonas Vingegaard has done so far without even not finished the race. Only the 27th rider in history being able to wearing all the three leaders in a jersey in all the three Grand Tours. Only the third of the riders in activity with Primož Roglic and Richard Carapaz. It's quite a start.
Yeah,
it's a very exclusive and tiny club of the riders who have been able to win in history all the three Grand Tours. And by me joining, still a week of a big fight is not yet done. Yesterday put a mark on it, but it's far from being settled.
You consider a career as brilliant as Primož Roglic's, and Roglic isn't in the club that Jonas Vingegaard wants to join. Of course, famously, Roglic came close to victory at the Tour de France, but never won it yet.
Not Tadej Pogacar.
Nor even Tadej Pogacar, although that feels like an absolute formality, doesn't it, at some points? But
you have
never
to do
know.
it.
You never know.
You have to do it. You have to do it. It was
maybe this year.
He got a third place in his very first year as a pro at the Vuelta. Never returned, never since. Maybe this year he will, but he always has such a charge at end of the year calendar.
Yeah.
And also the beginning is a rider who race a lot. If you look how Vingegaard approached this double effort of the Giro and the Tour de France, he raced very little, he raced very few competitions. While Pogacar in the spring is very much involved in many races, being also a classic rider in a way. No, in a way, more than a way, in plenty of ways actually. But at the end of the season, he's going to have as well the World Championship, where he wants to win. Is going to be in Montreal. So after doing the Vuelta, after doing the Tour de France, it's going to be at the Vuelta. It's going to be a very charged finale for him. But we will see. For now, Jonas Vingegaard looks in prime position to enter the club. Still a week of fighting.
Yeah, it feels like the UCI World Championships are so skewed in favour of a rider like Pogacar now. They're becoming more and more difficult, more and more climbing, that every single year and for years to come in the future, the courses are going to suit Tadej Pogacar. What he really needs is for flat sprinters World Championship, and that would enable him to just discount that and concentrate on the Vuelta. But it's hard to see when he's always targeting the rainbow bands, and just how he does the Vuelta as well.
Yeah, and that's going to happen just in 28 with the Abu Dhabi World Championship. Since then, it's going to be just very hard. Don't remember when they're going to be next year in 27.
Switzerland? Can't remember. No, they've just been to Switzerland, haven't they? They can't be going back there.
But 28 is Abu Dhabi, and there were rumours they were building
build a mountain for
but luckily, there was something else where it's going to be flat. Don't worry. But it was a good complaint. I don't remember which sprinter, if he was a retired sprinter or maybe it was Merlier. He said when it was the last time we had a chance at the World Championship, and it was very long time ago. I think the last sprinter, if I'm not mistaken, was
Sagan.
Yeah. Exactly, in Qatar in 2016. So it's now
that would be
10 years that there hasn't been a World Championship in favor of the sprinters.
Well, it's a straightforward day and it's a fairly relaxed day, but nonetheless it's a pretty fast day at the moment. 130 kilometres remain. Not too far to go to the only intermediate sprint of the day at Pavia. And that'll be the principal target for Mathieu Baes in the breakaway, to add 12 further points to his intermediate sprint standing.
Probably going to be uncontested at the back. Nico Maestri on your picture. Versnes, Marcellusi and Baes. It's the peloton instead. They're still losing ground. Huh? We're about to have a 3-minute gap. It's quite unusual. I would expect them to keep, what happened in the recent days was always they kept the breakaway very close by, as Emmanuel Gabriel Gabi slotted himself at the front here. Jonathan Milan, one of the main favorites for today's stage, pretty much present at the front already. That's Simone Consonni, Milan and Ganna, the three that were part of the victorious team pursuit of Italy in the Olympics in Tokyo.
One of the greatest track races of all time, that was.
Yeah, were behind the Danish four riders team pursuit team, just being able to get the best of them on the very last lap thanks to a monstrous ride by Filippo Ganna.
But what was so impressive about, Ganna made this massive difference in the last few laps. It was extraordinary, but it was only made possible because of all the work that his teammates had done, holding, keeping him protected for that last final effort. It was a masterclass of tactics.
And nonetheless, one image I still have pretty impressed in my memories is Simone Consonni really dying on the bike just to hold the pace of Filippo Ganna.
Exactly.
And what it was even more amazing, if you look like the overall picture, is that Italy managed to win the Olympic in the team pursuit on the track with 3 road riders, while Denmark, all the 4, they were just focused only on the track. None of them were a successful road racer. For Italy, instead, there was Jonathan Milan, Simone Consonni, Filippo Ganna and Francesco Lamon, the only pure track rider, the rider was deputed to launch the team pursuit, doing the first laps, and eventually the first one also to get dropped. That's how now team pursuit more or less is set up. So the first riders off the ramp is also the rider is going to be first dropping, as the time is counted on the best 3 riders.
Well, we've got a team pursuit-sized breakaway today. 4 riders who are doing effectively a team pursuit, building up a 3-minute advantage over the peloton, which is being led by Soudal Quickstep riding for Paul Magnier, Unibet Rose Rockets for Dylan Groenewegen, and a little bit of a contribution by this man, Emmanuel Gebreksjabir, who moves to the front, and he can sit on the front for a long time, the Eritrean.
Heiko Bastians and De Vries at the very back. And interestingly, Still, the two riders for Polti Malta, as Lukas Kubic appear at the front, fueling his teammates. And there's the river, the Po. The moment they're gonna crossing the bridge, they're gonna be exiting the province of Pavia.
It's the second time we've crossed the River Po, isn't it, so far at this Giro, going from south to north. I think we crossed it, did we not?
Yeah, did from Cervia.
Yeah,
the stage from
Cervia.
Oh no, maybe not. No, it wasn't. No,
We just saw it, maybe.
we just saw it. It's the longest Italian river, who created basically the flatland of Pianura Padana. It's been quite high. Been very rainy winter in Italy.
Look at that huge amount of vegetation there, those branches and those trunks that have been washed down from the mountains and have settled against that bridge.
Yeah,
Presumably creating all sorts of nesting habitats for birds and fishes and fish beneath.
there might be a reason why they haven't removed it.
Yeah, yeah. There's a little river in London that feeds into the River Thames, very close to where I live in South London, where occasionally, because it's a big city, you end up with shopping trolleys ending up in that river that people have just thrown in for whatever reason, you know, kids or whatever.
It was.
And actually, I did a conservation walk up that river when it was at low tide, and they don't remove them now because they end up becoming habitats where fish can lay their eggs and spawn.
Nature will always take over whatever you're going to throw at the river. Also, as you mentioned, there was, I think it was 21, if I'm not mistaken, the river Po was very
drought.
Yeah, and there was the chance to find a lot of, I would say, weird thing at the bottom.
Oh, look at this. A little Italian flag planted in the beach and being held aloft there by the fishermen. He's got everything sorted there, hasn't he? He's got a chair, got a little table. The bottles of wine have been opened. Presumably there's a barbecue grill situation. There is a little bonfire there, gas cylinder. Not a bad way to spend a day, that, Jacopo.
No, can't complain. It's not anymore used as for swimming or plunging into the Po as it was in the past.
I wonder what fish they would pull out of the River Po. We were talking about perch and carp.
Yeah, there is an how do you say, a species that doesn't belong to the habitat has been brought in here.
Non-indigenous, yeah.
And it's called siluro. Siluro is missile, basically, in Italian.
Right.
And they've been brought to Italy and sold as catfish because it's a typical dish, and they were bigger. And then it was not really able to sell that. Some, I would say, ironically smart person just throw them in the Po River, and they found out they're growing massively, becoming almost 2 meters long, and they eat basically everything.
Oh,
so
wow.
now, like,
So they're killing off.
Yeah,
they're killing off.
it's been already many years, but you can get paid if you hunt one of those.
Right.
Not very easy to catch.
Right.
And they're from Germany, apparently.
2 meters long.
Yeah, they're massive. You're gonna hear Ned being shocked by the dimension of this fish, because as I'm
You're showing me a picture of that's terrifying.
Yeah,
Now, I'm definitely not going to swim in the River Po with those things knocking around. They're enormous. An arm in the air, a tattooed arm from that very familiar rider, Martin Marcellucci. Frederic de Vesnes can ride all day as well. He's a very powerful rider. He's got huge amounts of endurance and a really good teammate, effectively, for the breakaway to have at this point.
Yeah, the usual position for the photographers that really like being hiding themselves. I'm waiting the Giro d'Italia on the...
Have something in the foreground of the shot. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is also a typical image they're gonna place on Instagram stories with the sound of cowboy team, you know, like shooting.
Yeah.
Milesi e Piganzoli.
In their very different ways, they've been outstanding, these two riders. And now, courtesy of that ride that Piganzoli did, Italy has 2 riders in the top 10. And with Giulio Pellizzari as well, much better, a much improved performance on the Pila stage yesterday for Pellizzari. A curious performance. At times we thought he'd absolutely gone, and then all of a sudden he was back. But Picanzoli was exceptional.
Yeah, yesterday Pellizzari goes like, for a lot of time we were wondering when it's going to be the time he will be dropped. It happened much later than we thought. And then all of a sudden, like, we moved up front with the cameras, and the moment they showed us again Jai Hindley at the back, Pellizzari, like almost like a phoenix resurrecting, and he did a very good climb. He did manage himself to stay in touch with the best riders. He's recovering as well, so does Jai Hindley, the duo from Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, almost matching one each other, you know, in every stage. They're battling with a little bit of illness. But it seems like they are on the way to recovery, and hopefully more to come from the two riders, Jai Hindley and Giulio Pellizzari.
Well, just enjoying a casual conversation while rolling along at almost 50 kilometers an hour. Being dragged along at the moment by the Eritrean from Lidl Trek, who's doing the work on the front. River Olona empties into the River Po at San Zenone. Newly planted forest alongside it, and a tiny little rise in the road, which is where the soigneurs have gathered for the official feed zone. They'll still be rolling on 50 kilometers an hour. It might be a little bit less because they're just going up a gradual rise, but this is a very fast feed zone. There'll be a lot of dropped bottles there. Yeah, it's interesting to see those two riders from Polti Visit Malta. They're just showing themselves there and just making it slightly more annoying, aren't they, for the teams who are chasing.
Tarot is also there. He doesn't know why they're there, so it's want to just be sure that they don't go on the attack and caught him by surprise.
Well, maybe they are. I mean, if they are poised to launch a counter-attack, number one, they wouldn't do it now. They can't do it now. This would be suicidal. 2 minutes and 41 seconds is their time gap. But they are expecting eventually this time gap to start coming down quite fast, and maybe they are there to kick it all off again. 3 Bardianis on the wheel. That's very unusual. You see that the riders, the teams in the breakaway, normally then their teammates drop right to the back, but there's 5 different riders from 2 different teams there riding in from 4th place on.
Yeah, maybe also to get a comfortable spot, as the wind is really and the speed is really making the peloton stretched out. So maybe I guess it might be also a chance for them to show the jersey and be in a good position to don't suffer too much on the wheels.
Just over 10 kilometers until we get to Pavia and the intermediate sprint. Still the thermometers, the temperature continues to rise.
They should be in Belgioioso, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they are. Plenty of support at the side of the road for a couple of different South American teams and riders, Colombians, Ecuadorians, flags being raised. The Uruguayan flag has been a feature of pretty much every stage finish here at the Giro d'Italia, celebrating the victory of Thomas Silva and his spell in pink.
They've been appearing a lot in stages, right? The Uruguayan flag. It's good to see a new Last year we had to witness the coming and rise of a new country, or at least one rider from a new country such as Mexico. And this year with Uruguay. So if this is going to be the sparks of some more riders coming from this unusual country that been never really featuring any great champion in the past, why not? We'll be more than happy.
Where's he going to put this one then? Down the front.
Glad is not using again those bottles for different purpose. Been involved in the P-gate.
Well, we're not going to discuss that in the commentary, but you can do a Google search for yourself if you want to. Victor Campenaerts and bottle and Giro d'Italia will probably be the only thing that you need to search for.
Exactly. So please be careful when you receive a bottle from the riders. If it's a yellow one, maybe double check before having a sip.
Campenaerts wearing pink shades as Visma Lease Bike take control of the Giro d'Italia now. What a team performance it was, to a man. But they performed their functions amazingly. Two standout rides, though, from Visma Lease Bike yesterday. And it wasn't just Davide Pigazzoli at the finish line on the previous climb. It was young Tim Rex, who definitely overnight became an internet meme.
He's
for many people taking over from Thomas Voeckler.
It was a kind of a, but he was not acting in this case. It was just pure pain for him. It was not il fait du cinéma, like it was the case with Thomas Voeckler. It was really,
that's a bit harsh. It wasn't always the case with Thomas Voeckler. Sometimes it was.
When he became famous, it was because he was never getting dropped. He was just doing it, and then eventually being able to remain in contact. The year he was having the yellow jersey.
Yeah, the Plateau de Bay it was, wasn't it, in 2004?
But yeah, he was the best team yesterday at Visma Lease Bike. Possibly the two best riders they had were indeed Tim Rex and Pigazzoli, but a huge display from the whole team. They were at the front at the very beginning and at the front at the very end. So a day controlled by from start to finish from Visma Lease Bike. So here we witness very famous the Castel di Belgioioso. One of the most famous spot here in the Pavia region, sitting not far from the capital of the province, Pavia itself. Very classic and elegant gardens.
I could see you walking around those gardens, Jacopo, wearing a kind of like cream linen suit with a straw Panama hat and a silver cane.
If I was one of the, I don't know, tobacco companies in the early 90s.
I could see you doing that. Absolutely, you fit the part.
I will fit in there, I see myself as well. Today is a pretty busy day here at the finish line, as often when it comes to a big city, and Milan is definitely the biggest city with Rome in Italy. A lot of activities for the public. It's been a lot of rides organized today. One as well for the 150 years of Castelli.
I think there was a little party of runners actually who set off as well about an hour ago to run presumably around the entire circuit. 16.3 kilometers. That would be a tidy run. That's a decent distance. Quite a long finishing circuit, isn't it? 16 kilometers of it, taking it on 4 times, which means that we've got a lot of today's parcours actually on the finishing circuits. They enter the circuit with 73.5 kilometers to go, so around about an hour from now, a little bit less.
So it's going to be good for the riders also when it's larger, as you can easily assume it's going to be less with less corners and less curvy, so it's going to be a bit safer. 4 times for them, as we had a little bit of glimpse of the nice touch of the bike from Marcelluzzi with the pink tires, pink sidewall. Actually like it. From Vittoria, sponsor of the Italian team.
Yeah, it's the right amount of pink. I think any more pink and it would be almost a little bit cheeky, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
it's the right of the Maglia Rosa to have the pink bike.
But they have also a kind of a matching bike with the Maglia Rosa, Bardiani CSF in this Giro d'Italia, completely disrupted from the team colors. And I have to say, I quite like it. It's a good color.
Now then, Bardiani have got 6 riders up towards the front. All of their team, pretty much, with the exception of Machalusi, who's at the front of the race.
And Rojas.
And Rojas, the Peruvian national champion.
Yeah, we did.
Well, there he is, actually, isn't he? The Peruvian national
No,
champion.
it's Lucas Kubicek.
Oh, it is, yeah, that's the Slovakian
By the
team.
white pants. We've been calling him the Puerto Rican national champion with our mistake, so I apologize for that. It's not very common for Bardiani to featuring riders from other countries rather than Italy.
But again, you know, he's a Peruvian national champion riding the Giro d'Italia, and it goes to back up your point that you were making about how, you know, a generation ago it was only the Colombians who were making an impact in European racing. Now Ecuador is firmly established with the likes of Jonathan Narvaez and Richard Carapaz. Isaac del Toro is from Mexico, has one of the brightest prospects in the entire world of cycling. But we've also had success from Uruguay and from Venezuela, and we've got the Peruvian national champion as well. So it's a real virtuous circle in Central and South America.
Yeah, it's changing, it's shifting from what it was before. It's the Caravana, as you're probably hearing, and now he has just arrived. But yeah, it's I think there's been featuring a lot of, as you would imagine, a lot of good climbers, both Chile and Peru. But Peru really never really features any major cyclists, and eventually they found the chance with the Rojas to have a rider in one of the most important races of the year with the Giro d'Italia. So very good indeed for them.
Well, at the moment I can barely hear myself think, let alone speak, because as you say, the publicity caravan has pitched up right outside our commentary position here at the finish line, and I think they've got a little bit excited today because they're in the big city of Milan and they've turned the volume up yet another notch. It's louder than it even normally is.
It is. But pardon us if we don't close the window, but 30 degrees outside in a commentary booth full with people is even more, so just gonna bear with us. Jan Christen at the far back of the peloton.
Yeah, he's one of those riders who often finds himself at the back. I think it's just where he's most comfortable a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's he just want to be in a good position. It's the kind of day where you can use to just recover a little bit from the effort in the previous day.
And there is the Peruvian national champion, the only Bardiani rider who isn't towards the front. Rider number 24, you can see that, Vicente Rojas.
It's in a long line, the peloton today. Of course, with the speed, so we are still riding and around 50 km per hour the whole day. Van der Lee wearing the maglia of the best climber. It's not belong to him. It's second, in fact, on this classification. But thanks to the points he scored yesterday, got the chance today to wearing it. Belongs to Jonas Vingegaard, and by a huge margin is a recap.
Yeah, there are 3 riders in the 70s now in terms of points after that big stage yesterday where there were lots of King of the Mountains points before the finish line. Van der Lee, he's only 2 points ahead of Giulio Ciccone, and Felix Gau keeps finishing second to Jonas Vingegaard on these big Category 1 climbs, and therefore he's picked up a total of 72 points. But Gau, like Vingegaard, is not targeting this competition.
Yeah, it might be there's going to be a consequences of all those uphill mountain finishes. We still have 3 mountain finishes, 2 actually, in fact. So still plenty of choice to score a lot of points for both Jonas Vingegaard and Felix Gall. It's very hard believing, unless one of those stages will belong to a breakaway, that they're going to be able to dislocate the Jonas Vingegaard from his position. As a very brave Girotto here appears at the front, a full-dressed puppet. How do you call him in English? When you have a
mascot.
A mascot.
Yeah.
And
going to be hot in there, isn't it?
Brave effort from him, because it's very, very warm, even without the costume.
This is a very familiar sight for those of you who every spring for La Primavera tune in to watch the beginning of Milan-San Remo, because in recent years Pavia has been the city after it left Milan, where it used to start from. It started in recent years from Pavia. Today it's the intermediate sprint, and it's only about one and a bit kilometers away, and we're expecting the rider at the back now, Mattia Pais, possibly unopposed, although you never know. I would imagine that Marcellucci will try and out-sprint him, because those two teams are rival teams. But Pais has got the most to gain here in pursuit of the individual sprint standings classification. He wants to gain himself another 12 points here. So Maestri's on the front. Still got 2.9 kilometers to go.
We're already entering the city.
Sure, it doesn't quite tally with what I have read in the road book, so we'll see just exactly where this sprint is. I think it might be a little bit closer than that, but we'll see.
Ticino. The stars from Switzerland, as you may assume, naming the very same region where Italian language is spoken, before heading south towards the Po.
And when racing resumes after the rest day tomorrow, it'll resume in Switzerland as well. Stage finish to Cari.
There will be an entire Swiss stage starting in Bellinzona, just outside the Italian border, close to Lugano, before heading to Cari. Very demanding stage, and as well a very demanding climb. But I think the riders doesn't want to look up to there just yet.
And that is another perfect postcard, isn't it, of the skyline of Pavia, dominated by the old Duomo. And for hundreds of years, the town planners of Pavia have kept that Duomo completely separated from any other tall building, so that it completely dominates the skyline and towers over everything else. Lovely.
Yeah. It's a university town, Pavia, featuring many faculties to study. And also not far from Milan, as you will see soon. In about 30 kilometers, they're going to be in Milan. So the two cities are very close and bonded as well.
Getting closer now to the intermediate sprint. There'll be a couple of points available. Well, in fact, there'll be 1 point available from the peloton. We've got 4 riders up the road. The 5th place rider at the intermediate sprint picks up 1 point in the Maglia Ciclamino.
It would be enough to level
To put Paul Magnier back in the Maglia Ciclamino, wouldn't it?
Maybe not, because it depends the sum of the victories and classification. So it might be can still be in the likes of Jonathan Narvaez, but still.
You've sent me reaching for the regulations book again.
We have
Jacopo.
Mighty 50 points at the finish line, so I think it would be so fundamental.
Lovely shot there from the helicopter flying over the River Torcino. Maestri on the front, Pais sitting on the wheel of Marcellucci. Marcellucci looking around to see where Pais is. The finishing arch for the intermediate sprint is close. Marcellucci's going for it. He opens up his sprint. Mattia Pais on his wheel. So it's Bardiani versus Polti Visit Malta. Mattia Pais still on the wheel, still trying to come out of the slipstream of Marcellucci, but Marcellucci's holding him off there all the way to the line, so doing his job for the team and relegating Mattia Pais on the day to 2nd place at the sprint. So he only picks up 8 points. So, the classification by points. If there is still a final general individual classification by points. In the event of a tie, the discriminating criterion shall be the number of stage victories. So it would be still Jonathan Narvaez's jersey. if they were both on the same number of points.
Yeah, been victorious already in 3 occasions.
Matej Bais is many things, but he's not a sprinter. Marcellucci is a powerful rider, strong rider, and just had enough there to hold off Bais all the way to the line. A little skirmish between the two of them. And now then, Jonathan Narvaez and Paul Magnier are competing for the right to be the virtual Maglia Ciclamino. Why not? Good bike race.
Yeah.
Narvaez kicking it all off and putting his team to work.
Well, I mean, he said, like, we don't know if we can target this for real, but at least give it a try.
Now, watch out for a counter-attack here. We've got Bardiani with Tarozzi just surfing the wheels here as well. The time gap is still 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but you might find a little group going over the top here.
So sometimes the differences are very tiny in the Ciclamino classification, as Mikkelbjerg very much involved in this, followed by Jan Christen, and then it's Narvaez.
It'd be interesting to see whether this is Magnier actually on the wheel of Jonathan Narvaez himself.
Yeah, it is.
It is Paul Magnier, so he's actually getting involved because he could have sent a teammate up the road to try and outsprint Jonathan Narvaez. A big lead out here for Narvaez, and this could all end quite badly for Jonathan Narvaez, who's kicked this all off with his team. Is Magnier going to come off the wheel here? When does Narvaez open up his sprint?
I think it's not just fast enough, Jonathan Narvaez, compared to Paul Magnier. But imagine, you know, in the big picture, now they level on each other, same points, but still Narvaez own the jersey. But imagine the amount of energy also compared to the other sprinters from Magnier. I mean, it's not going to be the game changer, but nonetheless, you need to be present, you need to be there.
That he didn't really have to do. So Magnier draws level in terms of points with Jonathan Narvaez, but according to the countback criterion, it's still Narvaez who is the Maglia Ciclamino at this point, though of course Paul Magnier might well be picking up a load of points at the finish line. So UAE Team Emirates really riding for the Maglia Ciclamino, have no doubt about it. This does signal that Jonathan Narvaez wants this jersey and wants to create a genuine challenge, see what he can do to take this jersey in Rome. And this bodes well, I think, for the days to come, in terms of Jonathan Narvaez trying to compete for intermediate sprints that Paul Magnier can't reach. I mean, no competition between those two, ultimately.
But nonetheless, he tried. I think it's became such of a target for Jonathan Narvaez. He wanted to give it a go, and why not? It was just 1 point in here, but more to come from the Ecuadorian. He's really have a couple of stages where they can suit him a lot in the coming days.
No conversation between these two as they draw breath and drop back to the bunch. And also no counter-attack, I don't think, has gone over the edge, over the top of that attack. Bastians brings them back from Soudal Quickstep, the teammate of Paul Magnier. Well, that's good news for Jonathan Milan, I think, that Paul Magnier exerted himself at that intermediate sprint.
Yeah, that's what we said. This is Ponte Coperto, a very famous city side of Pavia. Almost reminds you a little bit of Swiss bridges. They often covered.
Yeah. And again, that's a very familiar sight in recent years that we see every year at Milan-San Remo when they're waved off on the neutralised rollout. So they've been racing for 1 hour and 3 minutes. Around about 55 kilometres have been done.
Oh, it's fast, huh?
Very fast. So, confirmation then that both those riders are now on 131 points, tied. But Narvaez on countback, courtesy of his 3-stage victories to Paul Magnier's 2. There we go, the two competitors, totally different riders, but fighting for the same jersey, which is a unique fascination of this year's edition of the Giro d'Italia.
So still around 30 kilometers before they're going to be entering the circuit. The final one. 5 passages on the finish line for 4 laps.
That is an enormous dome, isn't it, at the top of the Duomo of Pavia. Bike change required.
For Josh Kench. Kiwi is having a very good day in the stage of Pavia on his very first Grand Tour. Recently signing for Groupama after spending all his career in Asia, coming from New Zealand. Here at the back of the peloton, 2:25 as kilometers are ticking, and we're heading into 100 kilometers from the finish.
Yeah, Josh Kench was, as you say, signed from Leading Star in China, but he was a little bit unlucky early on in his career. He's 25 years of age, because he signed in 2022, well, in fact, he came through the development team. So for 4 years, he'd been with a New Zealand-based continental team called Bolton Equities, Black Spoke. They took the step up in 2023 to Pro Team, and there was a lot of talk about them getting big sponsors and really establishing themselves and aiming for the World Tour. And they signed a lot of riders as well, like Rory Townsend and a few others. Greg Henderson was their director sportif. And then almost overnight and out of nowhere, the sponsor withdrew and the whole project collapsed, and leaving a lot of riders high and dry, and Josh Kench was one of them.
Yeah.
So he's had an interrupted career along the way, which makes his progress to World Tour level with Groupama even more impressive, I think.
Yeah, because he had to settle himself to riding for a Chinese team, which it's a very successful, actually, Chinese team, Leading. But nonetheless, racing mostly of the races in Asia. So, as we often said, it's a very European-centric sport, cycling. So he had to fall out to reach the point where he stands a chance to compete at the highest level. And he's doing so far very good, I think. He should be pleased and happy the way the race is going for him. Been fifth in the stage of Verbania.
So the caravan is waving goodbye to the people here at the finish line and moving out of the way. We've got a giant carbon fibre pistachio nut. We've had an enormous Wolfie mascot, a huge Norvi chocolate display.
Melted, probably, in the heat.
Melting, being mopped up by the toilet paper sponsor, Regina. And right at the back of the caravan, a big replica of the Trofeo Senzafini. A change in the sponsorship of the Giro d'Italia, Jacopo, means that this year we haven't had the Giro train.
Yeah, we were hoping to get the usual shot of the train staying leveling with the peloton, but it won't be the case this year. As the race goes on, soon they're going to be not far off of Certosa di Pavia.
Arrow straight for the next few kilometres, due north, long, 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 very straight road.
Back with the peloton. 98.8 kilometers for the breakaway, as the gap is starting a little bit, very gently being reduced to 19. As I think the target of the teams is to enter the circuit with still a gap, still a breakaway, but not too much large difference in between the two groups. Because sometimes the circuit is a little bit harder if you want to close a gap, because if you have many corners, of course, the speed differences isn't as much as you would expect.
I'm still baffled by Polti Visit Malta and Bardiani. There are now 3 Polti Visit Malta riders in third, fourth and fifth position, and they're still being followed by 6 riders from Bardiani.
The thing is the typical cause consequences. I think the Polti Visit Malta might be there for a reason. We don't know why, but the Bardiani saw this happening and said, okay,
if they're there, we've got to be there.
There must be a reason. We don't know which reason, but we want to be there. In case other attacks will come, they want to be in a good position. This is also a typical road that he often be featuring in the the old parcours of Milan-San Remo alongside the canal of Pavia and all the province. Well, if you wonder what's the difference between a sprinter and a non-sprinter, look at the output from Manier in possibly 80% of his power. Sprinting was 1,600, Marcelluzzi was 1,200. Definitely much lighter rider, Marcelluzzi, but nonetheless the amount of watts in difference is huge and remarkable.
Well, at the speeds they're racing at the moment, these 97 kilometers will be done in round about 2 hours, maybe a little bit more.
It's not a long stage, thankfully for them. Not very common at the same time to have a sprint in the Sunday of a Grand Tour. But there you are in one of the biggest cities. Oh, ambulance coming in. It's an image you often don't see, but that's a good thing, I think, radios for the riders, as they've been informed that an ambulance was coming by and they can be safely riding on the right side of the road, allowing the intervention of the ambulance where needed.
Well, that example that we've just seen there is probably the most convincing argument in the endless debate about whether or not radios should be removed from riders. One of the reasons that there's always an objection from the teams and the riders is for safety reasons, and that information will have been communicated on race radio and then through the team radios that they should move over to the right and allow the ambulance to come. That's not a bad argument when you see an ambulance coming against the flow of traffic.
Exactly, and plus to that is, as a former rider, it always strikes me when the people think without the radio the race would be more exciting. In fact, imagine if you don't have a radio, means like you always need to be present on the front. That means like spending way more energy, so the attacks there might come when they be very, very weak. And having the radio, I think, is a great benefit for the whole peloton, and riders always been involved into the discussion about it and being very verbal that what is their needs.
Well, the Giro A starting from Assago today.
Right outside Milan.
Plenty of people involved on the Sunday in Milan. I guess one of the reasons why the Milan stage is on the Sunday, and a Milan stage is always going to be some sort of a sprint. Hold that thought as we look at the Certosa di Pavia, one of the most important buildings in all of Italy. A masterpiece of Lombard Renaissance architecture. Enormous facade with marble relief, sculptures of all sorts. It was built originally in a Latin cross plan by the Visconti family. Its history dating back originally to the 12th century. The cloisters there, the accommodation there for monks who still run the cloisters. 24 monks' cells surround that quadrant. And the monks there still in the gardens make their own herbal teas, honey, and liqueurs, a bit like the monks of Chartreuse. That's beautiful, beautiful bit of architecture, and perfectly original as well, and not adapted or heavily overly restored, just beautifully preserved.
Some conversation in between Ben Connor. I just understand it's headwind. I don't know what the discussion was all about.
He looked a bit irate there, didn't he, Ben O'Connor? Making his point very forcibly. I think I gave you a bit of duff information about this, actually. It's not a 12th century foundation, it's much later than that. It's 14th century, late 14th century. Blend of Gothic and Renaissance styles. If you can pop in and visit there as a tourist and take in the sights, it's only €10 apparently to do the visit there, which is a remarkably good value. Yeah, going back to the point about a sprint on a Sunday in a Grand Tour, I mean, I guess you know that Milan wanted the race this year. They paid for the race to come into Milan. They can only do that in Milan on a Sunday, can't they? They can't bring the entire city to a halt on a working day.
Yeah, let's say usually the population of Milan is not very friendly when it's about having more traffic jam than usual because of a sport event. So as you said, this morning we're actually coming in here. We slept in the very first suburb of Milan and riding in here with the car. Reaching the place we are pretty near the center was very easy because not many cars were around at that time. And yeah, we benefit from a lot of people as despite the sun that's been present since already a couple of hours in front of our booth, and it's very, very crowded. And I think that having a circuit is also in play because of that, because you know you can see the riders many times, like 5 times in fact at the finish line.
Still curious to know what Ben O'Connell was complaining about. Like you, the only word I understood there was headwind, but I don't know in what context or what the point was that he was trying to make.
Back at the front of the race, still strikes me the UNO-X mobility skin suit. As you see clearly now, there is a zip at the back in order to be wearing. I wonder if they have a P moment, you know, without a zip at the front, if there is a dedicated zip, you know, to do it.
Or whether the zip has an aerodynamic function. Like a little ridge, like a seam.
Because
it has to have a function, doesn't it?
It could be because at the same time, and we pointed out, if you follow the live commentary in the time trial day, Filippo Ganna now raced to victory in that very stage. He had 2 zip. His skin suit, yes, it was having a zip at the back and at the front. The UNO-X Mobility doesn't feature a zip at the front, but to be seen if, you know, there is a solution to.
So my understanding of it, Jacopo, the rules around the design of a skin suit is you can't add a little ridge just that has no function other than aerodynamic adornment. It has to have a function, doesn't it? So maybe the zip does have an aerodynamic advantage, and also it gets around the regulations so that because you could say, well, that's how we get in and out of the jersey. That's
it might be that because there is a limit of the seams and everything.
The seams,
you cannot modify the body shape first of all, but at the same time, it should not be higher than 1 millimeter over your skin and body. So. There was a brief moment where this regulation were not put in place. I remember Tony Martin racing to victory in a world championship on the time trial. He was having sort of little metal wires in his skin suit in order to adding some drag. It's clearly be seen this sort of shapes still now, especially with the jersey of Sula Quickstep or the leader jersey providing the same sponsor as well. Movistar, they have you see this kind of seams. They're less than 1 millimeter, but on the sleeves is clearly visible in there.
Kind of amazing that it makes a difference, but it does.
Somebody's having fun.
Well, he's taken the wrong turning somewhere, hasn't he? He's going to have to get back across that water, get back in the wheels. To be fair, he's doing a really good ride. They're moving at 50 kilometers an hour almost on the left.
This is good. He's riding strong.
Don't quite know who he's chasing apart from his own shadow, but very impressive nonetheless. Time gap's come down now to 1:58, 90 kilometers to go. Not far now, 17 kilometers, a little bit less than 17 kilometers until we get into the Milano circuit.
It's coming from here before they're going to enter the village of the town of Binasco. It features as one of the suburbs of the north city of Milan, and then into the city.
And we're going to see them over the finishing line in front of us on a total of 5 occasions today. There's going to be 4 entire laps They go over the finishing line for the first time with 65.2 kilometers to go in 24 kilometers time. David de la Cruz took the Red Bull kilometer yesterday. The Red Bull kilometer comes with 42.2k to go today, in the middle of the circuit. So don't get confused, because they're going to go through that Red Bull kilometer, I think, once before it actually counts. And I hope they all know that. I hope there's no confusion as to when the Red Bull kilometer actually counts.
You also hope for ourselves, right? Here you have a good image where we were talking about the seams on the jersey of the Pinarello Q 6.5 kit.
I didn't know about the 1mm regulation.
Yeah. But it's changing very often. These rules, year after year, they're usually changing it. And as for every garment that's being used by the riders, so bikes, helmets, wheels, handlebars, so the entirety of the bike and the helmet need to be UCI approved.
Yep.
For the clothing, it's a little bit much more gray area. In theory, what UCI says that nothing of the riders are using it should be a prototype, which can be very easily spotted on a bike, on a pair of wheels, on a helmet. On the clothing, it makes a little bit more, you know, subtle. So that's where I think teams have much more free room of playing around and testing different scenario within the regulation, which it just expresses this. It doesn't have to modify your body shape. It doesn't have to be rigid, of course, and it doesn't have to feature any difference or seam higher than a millimeter. So apart from that, I think teams can really try something different. There is also a rule which is actually make me always smiling, because it's very hard to put in place. It says, like, technically you should ride always with shirt and short pants, you know, with a jersey and a short pants. Only exception if the weather is not, you know, good and you need to wearing more layers. But how can you say a rider that he should not wear a long sleeve when it's 30 degrees? He might tell you, I'm cold. So it's just a rule, I think, in there just to prove a point rather than be really applied.
So Binasco, the next waypoint along the road to Milano, just to the south of Milan. And we're shooting towards Milan at a high speed, entering the circuit very soon now. As you can see, the Visconti family responsible for building a lot of these castles and the abbey in this part of Lombardy to the south of Milan.
Milano lays just not far off the city, the town of Binasco.
Time gap's just holding steady at the moment. UAE Team Emirates have already been put to work. Mikkel Bjerg in conversation with Antonio Morgado. And of the 5 remaining UAE Team Emirates riders, I think we've seen the least of Morgado, which is a bit surprising, because he's a very, very attacking natured rider, very strong rider, but we haven't seen too much of Morgado.
Yeah. So far, it's true, to be fair to say, he was caught up in a crash in the second stage of the almost entirety of the UAE Team Emirates. But after that, he always failed to impress us. We had a lot of expectation on him, but so far, nothing also from the Portuguese rider. Still very young, though.
I mean, I'm sorry, only in Italy would you have a museum dedicated to the history, technology, design and the cultural impact of the espresso coffee machine.
But just next to it,
it's a religion in this country, isn't it?
Next to it, there is a very famous factory, Cimbali, for those who are coffee lovers, which seems like to be some sort of thing, you know, around the world. Coffee preparation.
It's particularly associated with cycling as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from, but seems like new hipsters, you know, whether to have coffee and spending time on the bike or preparing coffee. But Cimbali is nonetheless one of the best machines for having a good coffee at home. We specialize also in machines for bars, so much more professional products. Feed zone for the riders. I missed one there for Bardiani CSF.
It's a 50-kilometre-an-hour feed zone, isn't it? On the flat. It's technical. They're having to scrub off a lot of speed here to make sure they get those bottles from the side of the road, snatching them.
It's curious to see that not all the teams decided to go with Musette today, as the stage itself won't be too long in terms of hours. So some teams opted just to fuel in the drinks rather than, you see Alpecin, definitely no Musette for them. As well EF, was Soudal, my bad. But some teams decided to just go with Bidens on today's stage. As Francesco Busato at the back calling for the car. Maybe he won't, Musette is going to get tended from the car.
So the riders right at the front doing the work. They didn't take any bottles from the side of the road. They brought bottles from behind. Just a little recap of today's race, which got off to a start 8 minutes down on the scheduled flag drop at kilometre 0. And it took a little while for Dvesnes, Maestri, Base and Machalusi to get away. Alpecin Premier Tech seemed determined to try and get in the break, but in the end they missed it and had to give up. And the gap has hovered around 2 minutes 30, down to about 1 minute and 55 at some points, and now it's, as you can see on your screen, it's just over 2 minutes, the gap, with 84k to go. We're 9 kilometres from the Milano circuit. And a little bit less than 20 kilometres, 19 point something from the first passage over the finishing line.
It's going to be a very fast day today. Way less than 2 hours till the finish. As Bardiani in there, a little bit annoyed by the presence of the motorbike. The only riders who usually get annoyed by the presence of the motorbike are the riders who are not riding at the front. So it's a bit like a comedy.
Looking after the interests of their teammate up the road, Martin Machalusi. Don't want any assistance given to the chasers, who are holding them at 2 minutes at the moment. And already we're into the suburbs of Milan. It's getting heavily built up now. Away from the open fields and the occasional lines of trees as well, the temperature's going to go up as we reach the hottest part of the afternoon. The city is sweltering today, Milan. That freezing cold day in Blockhouse seems like a distant memory. So only partially successful day so far for Polti Visit Malta. Mattia Bais getting in the breakaway. Only picking up 8 points though, Bais, at the sprint. If he'd picked up 12, he would have moved to 48 points and right on the same tally as his teammate Diego Sevilla. As it is, he's still in third place in the intermediate sprints overall standing, where Manuele Tarozzi, back in the peloton, has a lead of 60 points to 48 of Diego Sevilla.
Gap has remained unchanged over the recent kilometers. 2 minutes. They're holding on quite good at the front. Dvesnes is asking for Biden from the car. He's been victorious last year, the Norwegian rider in Tirreno Adriatico, with early breakaway, and was able to drop everybody else and holding off the peloton.
Machalusi, the winner of the intermediate sprint in Pavia today. Haven't seen him off the front too often, Machalusi, in this year's Giro d'Italia.
roundabout. This is the very first roundabout of Milan-San Remo. I think all of the riders know this from the past. Just changed it in the last 3 years, the parcours. The first time in history, and moved out of the center of Milan. It was always starting in front of the Palazzo Farnese, Castello Sforzesco. My bad.
Just maintaining this 2-minute gap. What they don't want to do at this point is bring that gap down too close to encourage maybe Visit Malta and Bardiani to kick it all off again.
And Alpecin Premier Tech as well.
And Alpecin Premier Tech. And they certainly don't want to bring it back before 42.2 kilometres, because that is the those are the Red Bull sprints, the Red Bull kilometre.
Yeah, and
yeah, they don't want to engage that race at all.
And not much because of this. They worried about the Red Bull kilometre itself, but if it comes to a full bunch in there, it might be a moment of the chaos that can have sparking some new attacks. So they want to have everything under their control, as it looks like.
Well, as we're saying, we're so used to average speeds going up to the high 40s sometimes in terms of average speed, but the first time 40 kilometers an hour was ever reached is at the Giro d'Italia back in 1936. A rider called Raffaele Di Pacco, winning stage 15. Like every other sport in the world, times, technology, preparation, diet, always improving, and the average speeds of the peloton goes up year on year on year. Just this year, of course, in marathon running, at the London Marathon, 2 runners went under 2 hours for the first time in a regular marathon, which seemed like a completely impossible landmark. Similar things are happening, I think, in cycling as well. All these riders are over 2 hours down in the general classification. Marcellusi's case is very nearly 3 hours down on the leader of the Giro d'Italia, Jonas Vingegaard, who'll be hoping to get through today without any scares. His team will come to the front as they approach 5 kilometres to go eventually, and make sure that they keep him out of trouble, just in case there are crashes in the finale. There's a lot at stake for the sprinters teams, because everyone was denied a proper bunch sprint on that those slippery cobblestones in Naples, so that didn't happen. And so they've had to wait since Bulgaria, really, for another opportunity. And since Paul Magnier dominated in Bulgaria on stage 1 and 3, that leaves an awful lot of sprinters unhappy with their return so far at the Giro d'Italia. So a lot of pressure and nerves will be jangling as we approach the finishing circuit in Milan, just 5K to go.
Yeah, contrary from the past, this year the Giro d'Italia doesn't really features many chances for the sprinters, being a little bit slight tilted towards the climbers. There is Milan, and of course when you have such a dominant star from Paul Magnier, he got basically the first 2 victories, and at the third chance, at the third sprint of this very Giro d'Italia, a crash really shaped the outcome. Nothing to take away from Ballerini winning that, but a lot of riders went down. And since then, we haven't had any sprint. So there's been a long wait for the sprinters. And today they don't want to miss the chance. But as you said, many teams are not happy, and they hoping to have an impact on today. First in line, as you will assume, is Jonathan Milan. Be probably among them the most, I'm going to say, the rider with the most expectation to win a stage in here. He failed so far, but he has... it's enough if one day to get it right, because then we'll put him back in contention, and with today and Rome, we're gonna have a big chance. But also this team with the sprinter Dylan Groenewegen, Unibet, Rose Rockets, they've been the best sprinting team in setting up the lead out. Very unfortunate the team and Groenewegen himself in Napoli.
Portuguese flag at the side of the road as we enter Milan as well, in honour of the now retired Giro Maglia Rosa. Afonso Olalio, who's wearing the white jersey today, as Visma Leasebike take control of this year's Giro. Jonas Vingegaard in pink. Campenaerts goes back for bottles once more. Does this job extremely often and extremely well, Campenaerts. The road is a little bit narrower here, so it makes it a little bit more difficult for him to make progress up the side. As we enter Milan, the fashion capital of Italy. The home of RCS, the organisation of the Giro d'Italia. And second only to Rome, Italy's second city. Home to just a little bit less than 1.5 million people.
It's a big city, the most modern city in Italy so far. Having very famous events with the Fashion Week, the Design Week as well.
Football crazy, of course, Milan, with its two football giants, Milan itself and Internazionale, sharing the San Siro stadium, but also with a long, long pedigree and heritage in the sport of cycling.
Yeah, there is one of the most beautiful velodrome, Vigorelli, 400 meters long, in woods, but without any roof. It collapsed many years ago, been restored, and right today there was a youth race in the velodrome of Milan, Vigorelli.
Yeah, the trustees, the owners of the Vigorelli velodrome, have a lot in common. They have a partnership with an open-air velodrome in South London called Herne Hill, which was used in the 1948 Olympics. And a bit like the Vigorelli, a few years ago, about 10 years ago, it had broken down, it had fallen into disrepair, but they raised the funds to resurface it, and it's a really dynamic and active place now. Produced riders like Ethan Hayter, Fred Wright. They both came through junior teams that used to race on Herne Hill Velodrome. And I know that the Herne Hill people have been in close cooperation with Vigorelli, sharing sort of resources and information about how to crowdfund and raise funds and get the money together to restore their twin velodromes.
I'm not, in a way, a nostalgic person that everything need to be preserved and conservative on, you know, what was built many years ago. But in the case, especially for sporting sites such as the Vigorelli, I think it's good the way they managed to keep it and to restoring it, because imagine having a sports site in a big city. What does it mean for children? You know, they can ride the bike safely into a town that basically is not very, let's say at least, bike friendly. It's sadly famous for having a lot of accidents, a lot of death. People, you know, it's been a battle for years for the cyclists like to commute in the city of Milan. So the fact that they've been able to keep the Vigorelli velodrome they're using right now for races for youth riders is just heartwarming, because it's how you create the next generation, not just of champion, but of people. I mean, it's not like every rider is going to be involved into this racing, going to be a professional, but nonetheless, giving the kids a safe space to practice some sports
couldn't agree more. Yeah. And there's a famous old velodrome in Turin as well, isn't there? That's in similarly bad state, I think, last time I saw it.
Yes, it's been also renovated. It's not used for racing.
What's the name of the
Motovelodromo.
That's it, yeah.
Motovelodromo, if I'm not mistaken. And there is at the city center, in the center of the velodrome, they were able to create some paddock courts and shops and bars, because the velodrome itself is close to the city center.
Yes.
And so they've been able to use it and kind of renovating to being able to order it. As we see, they're already into the circuit of today's final stage in Milan.
Yep. So get a good look at this. We're going to see this on 4 laps. This 16.3 kilometer circuit that they're on now. Got about 8 kilometers to go exactly until they see the finish line for the first time. And then after that, 4 complete laps of the 16.3 kilometer circuit. And they've entered halfway round, basically. And it won't be long before the peloton are there too, at just 2 minutes. So absolutely calibrated their effort at the moment to match exactly the effort of the 4 riders at the front of the race. Let's have a look at Milano then. Many of these landmarks will be very, very familiar to you. And a little bit of the modern architecture, the modern skyline of this very, very important economic hub in northern Italy. The economic powerhouse, really, of the Italian state, Milan. Hosting a stage finish for the 90th time in its history. Most recently, we've had time trials here in 20 and 21, the 2 COVID-affected years. And it won't surprise you to read that both those time trials were won by a certain Filippo Ganna.
Yeah, the first one in a kind of a straightforward way, just being stronger than anybody else. And the second one, instead, it was a bit different, as having Ganna sustain a puncture. If you all remember, I think it was the fastest bike change in the history of time trial, because it took him very little time to get on a new bike and winning eventually the time trial of Milano.
Andreas Leknesund, curiously for him, having a day off at the moment. We haven't seen him attacking for a change. Oh, a little bit of trouble there for Sudan Quick-Step rider.
I think it was Paul Manier having a mechanical, but stopped on the wrong side of the road, because you cannot get any assistance on the left of the road.
Derek G. West making progress up on the left of your picture, the right-hand side of the peloton, along with a couple of Legal Trek teammates. 5.5 kilometres to go until they see the finish line, as they do their first bit of reconnaissance. This will be about, as I say, just over 5 kilometres from the line. Jonathan Milan, in interview before today's stage got underway, was very relaxed about the course design, seemed to think that it was, for a city centre circuit, relatively unstressful, nice and easy to read, easy to race. So he seemed quite happy with the course design.
Yeah, it's not, how can I say, easy to design a parcours in Milan, because it features a lot of tram and railways. So to get the right amount of, you need to respect the sporting criteria, but as well like safety criteria. And as often happened in the past, there was some sort of problems to find a route that wasn't featuring any rail crossing. So they found it was the case today. And it's going to be pretty easy to, manage this type of parcours. As you see, it's not very small or with technical corners.
Yep, nice smooth chicane there. Just last time we caught a glimpse of the front end of the peloton, it looked like those Polti Visit Malta riders had removed themselves from their position towards the front, and as a consequence of that, I think the Bardiani team as well have dropped back. Instead, it looked like we had the lead-out train of Uniboat Rose Rockets already in place.
Yeah, and as well the Lidl Track team, they both placed themselves right at the front, as you see now in the image. The distinctive pink and helmet and sleeves for the Unibet Rose Rockets.
I think it's the whole team, isn't it? Wout Poels included.
Yeah. They are on a mission today, maybe being able to get their first victory as ever as a team, starting off the very first Grand Tour ever for them. Quite a unique and different approach to cycling in the first place, because it's a team starting off as a YouTube channel, later becoming a team.
Well, these 4 riders have still got a bit to offer, rolling along at 53 kilometres an hour and approaching the finish line quite rapidly now. A little bit of pavé to deal with there. And back onto the tarmac, into the shade of this avenue of very mature trees, casting deep shade over the road. That'll be a relief. Baking sunshine now, right overhead. Be a lot of people who've been waiting here for a good few hours already at the finish line, about to get their first glimpse of the peloton and the breakaway. And at the end of the day, there's going to be plenty of people with a lot of sunburn, I think.
Yeah. Groupama FDJ United also appeared at the front, trying to stay in a safe position for their leader in the sprint, Paul Penouet, being quite at the back in the recent sprint, didn't quite have an impact. That's what I was saying about the fact that you're in a circuit and you know you're going to cross the line. It sparks just a little bit different reaction. As you see, this is not like what you usually see from a peloton at 70 kilometers to go. Yeah, it's a little bit already some skirmish in a way.
It's true. It looks like they're riding with 20 kilometers to go, 15. It's that little bit of extra focus. And you're right, this stage has the feel of the final day of the Giro about it. The final day of a Grand Tour, but it is only stage 15. Mathieu Baes needs another bottle from his team car. Time gap at 2:06, the likelihood is the team car's still absolutely there in the gap.
They haven't lost much. And, I mean, it's very hypothetical, but bear in mind having this sort of stress at the back could spark sometimes some moment where you need to push hard just to retain your position, especially on such a large finale. This is the last corner, and it's going to be pretty much straight towards the finish. But nonetheless, when it's so stressful at the back, when it's so stressful from far, you can have like hard time getting and catching the breakaway because you're spending so much already to be at the front, and these huge fights can go in favor of the breakaway of today.
Up ahead of them is the Flamme Rouge. It'll be 1 kilometre to go when they finally make their way around this circuit for 4 times. If you know your Milan layout, it's the Corso Venezia that they're finishing on today, just in front of the Natural History Museum. And the park, the Giardini, Porta Venezia. Porta Venezia, the big metro station on the Corso Venezia. Just this little kink in the road in the final few hundred meters, but nothing much more than that. Slight deviation from the arrow straight line, and then it straightens up again. And you can see how hard these riders are working just to preserve their 2 minutes and 6 second lead.
Soon on the finish line, it's going to be the first time the public here and ourselves as well having the glimpse of the Giro d'Italia. It's a very wide with more than 7 meters, so there's no danger of some sort. You just need to get the timing right, because the sprint is can catch you by surprise because you don't want it to start too soon. Very unique chance for the riders to have a circuit in such a beautiful city.
Roared on the breakaway as they go over the finish line and out onto their first lap of 16.3 kilometers with a time gap of just over 2 minutes. I wonder what it's going to be next time we see them over the line. And pretty soon, the peloton will be honing into sight. Led in this instance by Houthuis de Vries of Unibet Rose Rockets in the company of Gebrek Jabir, the Eritrean ruler, Domestique from Lidl Trek, and Bastins of Soudal Quickstep. So you look at it like that, a 2 minute time gap is actually a lot of road, isn't it?
Yep.
And yet the peloton knows that the catch is entirely predictable here. They've got it under control for now, at least. They will perhaps start chipping away a little bit at the lead.
They're about to come here at the finish line, as Ned enjoying some filming moment himself.
Well, yeah, it's a circuit race, isn't it? So I don't have to concentrate on the final bit of commentary. So a little bit of cycle tourism for me now. Catch a little lean out of my commentary box and actually watch with my own eyes the race come past. Quite a spectacle. Everybody straining for a look as the bunch approaches the finishing line for the first time, getting a good look at what awaits them in just over 60 kilometers time. Paul Magnier, just the last rider over the line there, safely back in the wheels, I think. Or if it wasn't him, it was one of his teammates. There was a Soudal Quickstep jersey that just went through.
Oliver Nasen, we have the chance now to commentate what you don't see in the TV. And all the cars are crossing the line as well, as the peloton turning left as well, following the same path as the breakaway now in your images. As said, the parcours itself is quite large, quite big. No difficulty of some sort. It seems like a pretty large circuit for to be in a town such as Milan.
And that time gap has been remarkably constant, hasn't it? 50 kilometers, 2:10, 2:04, 2:01, 2, and then 2:04. That's all they've been handed, but they've been given it's something to work with for these four riders as we now enter the last hour and 20 minutes or thereabouts of racing. It's only going to get faster the closer they get to that final finish line.
Yeah, from now on there won't be any comeback. And still they're keeping a very decent gap. I mean, I think with the help, there are strong riders, and Marcellusi maybe is the less capable on the flat, but nonetheless is, how can I say, a very feisty rider. So even if it's not a pure flat or time trialist, it's gonna giving all he can, and that's what we said. Look at the face of Heiko Bastians, 15 stages in, and the stress is already piling up. So that can make a lot of difference on such a stage, even if the breakaway doesn't, I mean, have very little chances. It's not to be ruled out that they can all off. At least they're gonna have gonna make the peloton to dig very deep if they want to catch the breakaway.
And there is the magnificent Duomo. Thinking back, I think it was the Egan Bernal year, wasn't it, where we finished outside the Duomo? Trofeo Senza Fine was presented right with the facade in the background. A Gothic masterpiece. Completely dominating the centre of Milan with the big piazza in front. And most notable for that very, very ornate facade.
Yeah, it's a unique opportunity also to walk on the roof of it, as you can see from the people. I think it was the year you're referring to, the year of Guggenhardt, 2020.
Was it?
He was right in front of, on the side of the Duomo. Beautiful and magnificent church, Milan.
Yeah, it was right, wasn't it? It was the individual time trial that you were talking about, the Ganna victory in Milan in 2021. That was the year that Bernal also won the general classification. Had a strong image of Egan Bernal standing in front of that facade, lifting the Trofeo Senza Fine.
He didn't guess the jersey wrong, but he was just another rider.
Yeah. So 60.2 kilometres. At some point we're going to see the Red Bull kilometre on the circuits, but they won't be racing for it this time. It's around about 1.5 kilometres away from where the riders find themselves at the moment. We'll see the Red Bull arch. Of course, if they're not caught by the time 42.2 kilometres comes around, then those bonus seconds won't disrupt anything. They won't come into play. Yeah, real processional feel to this stage today. It does, just say it again, I know we've said it before, it does feel like the final stage of a Grand Tour. City centre circuit in a big, almost capital city, the capital of the north anyway, Milan. And an opportunity for the sprinters after successive very hard days in the mountain. It's the rhythm of a Grand Tour.
Showing some pain again here, Heiko Bastians. As the gap has gone down, not by much. Very hard time there for Sobrero, catching the bottle. Speed is very high.
It's good fun watching the bottles today. It's a sport in itself, isn't it? Catch the bottle.
It's too fast.
It's just so fast today, and it's so flat as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So the soigneur, they cannot really have a different place where they're placing themselves to give the bidons to the riders. So it has to be done at high speeds. I think in those cases it's better to have a musette.
So now the Red Bull kilometre. And let's hope that all these riders understand that it's not activated yet, it'll be next time around, and that we don't see any full sprints here from the back. How well informed are they? How well prepared? How much did they study the road book? I'm always amazed at some riders who, they almost wake up in the morning, have breakfast, go to the start line and don't really know what kind of stage it is very often. Some are very well prepared, but not all of them.
No. And we were joking, if those who are listening to us, so the UCI have put in place, for safety reason, obviously, concussion test to be doing in case of a crash or in case there are suspected concussion from riders, which is featuring asking some questions, some random question like what day is today, where we are, and there is a very specific team, which is Little Track. They realize that some of their riders don't even know the answer to those questions in normal life.
Yeah.
So they had to come up with a little bit more specific question to riders, because and I guess that 90% of the riders now, if you ask them, even at this point they have just a normal crash and they're side of the road, and you ask which day is today, maybe Sunday because they know tomorrow is rest, but if you ask which day of the month,
no idea. Yeah.
Where are we?
No, I would like to think that 100% of the peloton would say Milan. But yesterday, how many would have been able to say Pila?
No, nobody. Or Aosta even.
Or Aosta.
And especially, you know, if you're like halfway through the week, like on a Wednesday or a Friday, and you ask a rider after a crash, like, which day of the week is today?
Yeah, but Jacopo, let's be honest, if you asked a cycling commentator that question at a Grand Tour, you'd struggle.
Exactly. And even more to a rider, but there again, I think that's the ability of riders of a Grand Tour. I think you need to take, especially if you're not involved into a GC, you know, battle, like taking really day by day and just knowing, like, okay, what is today, what I have to do. It's either like full implication or either resting for another day, then go into the breakaway, just these sort of things. But like, keep it at bare minimum, because you don't have the energy, I think, to spend overthinking what day it is today, what you have to do today or either tomorrow. As the Teatro della Scala, the main opera house.
I think that's the good, you know, the good directors sportifs who do the briefing on the bus in the morning. They know the right balance to strike by, you know, giving the riders limited but critical, important points to remember, but not overloading them. On the other hand, they have to be told, don't they, that you know, watch out for this and watch out for that, especially if the wind is coming into play.
Yeah, usually.
But you can give, I guess, you can give far too much.
No,
as well.
no, exactly. And plus, like, okay, the Grand Tour is not Tour of Flanders, where you have, I don't know, 100 points, vital points in a day. It's the Giro, so you have, it's a Grand Tour. You have very few moments where you know you need to be up front, you need to do this and that. But I think most of the directors, they just give like the bare minimum information to that the rider are briefed for the stage, and then while the race is going on with the radio, just informing them like what's coming up. You know, if there is a narrowing in a city, you won't be mentioning this before the race. You just say to the riders like 10 kilometers before, 5 kilometers before, watch out because there is a dangerous moment. But you don't want to overcharge a rider with information, because at the same time they cannot remember. Some more confirmation here, and I think Campenaerts, if I'm not mistaken, they're asking something regarding neutralization. Crash, although we don't see anybody.
So it's a Movistar. Was that Milesi possibly? Movistar rider at the back, unseated. Just that little pinch point. That's the only really technical point on the circuit that I've noted so far. Just that sweeping chicane where the road narrows a little bit, and a Movistar rider seemingly on his own. Let's have a look. As Campenaerts was in conversation ahead of us, we've got a couple of Bardiani riders remounting, and Campenaerts is pointing to the race directors as if to say, "There you go. That's what I meant."
Yeah, it doesn't look like a dangerous circuit, to be fair.
So what was Campenaerts' point?
Yeah, that's trying to get a neutralization. I think, yeah, it's quite obvious that why Victor Campenaerts is doing this is just to having more chances and nothing happens to the leader, rather than the safety of the race itself, because it doesn't look as there is any danger in this particular circuit, to be fair. But we're not in the race, we're not the riders, so we don't know also the condition of the tarmac, if it's pristine. But probably the conversation was all about from Ben O'Connor before as well. We don't know.
Well, regardless, the racing continues at the front, and Gebrekschabeer doing a very measured ride here. Plenty more to give Gebrekschabeer. You can see he's used to doing this hour after hour. This is a relatively short shift of work for him today, and he's being supported by two other riders. But it is interesting how deep into this circuit now they're prepared to give those four riders 2 minutes. They've got 11 kilometers to go until the Red Bull bonus seconds are neutralized. Maybe after that it might change a little bit. This massive royal residence here, now open to the public, with the park that extends gloriously behind it. Major attraction, and right in the heart of Old Milan. Huge walled ramparts.
Right in front of it. Yeah, right in front of it. It was the start of Milan-Sanremo back in the days, as you remember, Ned.
Yep.
If you, I don't know if you are aware that the Castello Sforzesco, it's at the very beginning of the Corso Sempione, which is the very same road that connects Milan. It was built by Napoleon. It connects Milan to Paris. So the Simplon Pass, which is between Italy and Swiss, is the same very road that starts from Milan.
I didn't know that. That's fantastic. So the Norwegian doing a long turn on this on the front of this quartet of riders, in which he's the only non-Italian. And the time gap is as big as they've had for a long time now, 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Average speed has just simply been fast all day, 50 kilometers an hour. And they're closing in on the finishing line for the second time with 3 laps remaining. Peloton coming through a fair way behind. Just going through the arch that says 5 kilometres to go. But of course, they still have a race distance of 51.8 from where they are at the moment.
The stress is high, and I think it was a very good call from Unibet Rose Rockets to place themselves in there, because as you see at the background, look at, for instance, the Sudal Quickstep team. They're already to use Garofoli in order to retain the position. This is going to be a rider less for later on. While if you manage yourself to be in the best possible position in there, you can save energy very simply. As the breakaway is about to reach it's a U-turn, but a very wide one, so it won't be bothering too much the rider. 2 kilometer marks, as you see, it's a very wide one, and then it's a very, very large road. And that's sometimes the rider doesn't like when it's too straight, too wide, because you need to have a good timing to hit the front. And it's going to be in the safe zone today. It's a sprint stage, so what now seems like it's been called the sprint zone. We're going to start at 5 kilometers to go, so meaning that from 5 kilometers, all the mechanical you might have or crashes that you're seeing you involved will be neutralized, or you're going to be awarded with the time of the group you're part of. But for the teams who want to nail to perfection, the moment they hit the front, it's very difficult you need to have very clearly in mind what you want to do, because it's easy that you get caught up in the heat of the moment and launch the lead out too early.
And I guess when you go from a relatively standard sized road into a much wider road, there's a temptation, isn't there, to fill the space, I guess, because suddenly the road opens up, so you're not trapped on the wheels. You can actually move to the front en masse, but there's a real risk in doing that, isn't there? Yeah.
Yes, indeed, not very easy to manage, but that's what it is. Sometimes it seems like counterintuitive, but when you have corners, it's almost easier because it stretches out the peloton by the nature of the parcours itself.
So it pins you on the wheels, it keeps you there in position. And on they come with a slightly extended time gap from the last time we saw them over the finishing line. Marcellusi bringing Mirko Maestri, Fredrik Dversnes and Mattia Bais to the finish line again with 3 laps remaining. And we're about 6 kilometres, 7 kilometres from the Red Bull kilometre, for real this time. And all those bonus seconds and the cash prize indeed will go the way of these riders. In the breakaway, big roar goes up in front of our position, and over they go for the second time of asking.
49 kilometers to go, 2 minutes 10, hasn't changed much the time gap. They even increased, even by little, over the course of the first entire lap in this CD laps. De Vries still at the front, Bastians. Also, EF Education Easy Purse for the first time involved into the chase. They want to set up a good sprint for the Estonian national champion, Madis Mikkelsen.
Yeah.
Mikkels, sorry.
I think it's James Shaw who's moved to the front to do this work. And I think that's the first time that EF on a sprinting stage have actually sent a rider to share the work. So they've got increasing confidence in Madis Mikkels.
He was sprinting very good, he was climbing very good. I think he's in a very good shape, the Estonian rider. They started off maybe not with with royalties of being top sprinter, but he gained his spot very well. He's been finishing 4th and 5th in the 2 sprints he's been featuring, and having also a top 10 in the stage of Novi, climbing very, very well indeed.
It's actually Darren Rafferty who's been sent to the front to ride for EF Education. So 4 teams chasing now. Sudal Quickstep, Unibet Rose Rockets, Lidl Trek and EF Education Easy Post. But the time gap
hasn't gone up.
No, it's gone out.
Yeah.
2:36.
We don't know if it's sometimes a matter we're in a city and the time gap is calculated with a GPS signal. It might be a little mistake because they gain all of a sudden those 30 seconds.
Well,
but nonetheless,
it feels like 2.5 minutes since they came over the line.
Yeah, and let's not need to be mentioned. Garofoli has also placed himself in the front, working, because I think Aiko Bastians doesn't quite have the energy, and I think also Raccagni Noviero. So, or it's no, maybe it's Zana. Yeah, so it is indeed Zana, as Aiko Bastians probably not having the best day on the bike, as Visma is a bike using the very same tactic as the other day. On the other sprint days, sorry, being completely positioned at the back, so does Giulio Pellizzari.
Well, it's a stress-free position that Jonas Vingegaard has placed himself and his team in, but it's not without its risks. This is a city centre circuit being raced at 50 kilometres an hour. If anything happens in front of them, they could get caught up in a crash. There could be splits in the peloton if there's a crash. They could have to work mighty hard. So there's a bit of a gamble going on for Jonas Vingegaard at the back there, but good spot, Jacopo. All those yellow jerseys are at the back. Yeah,
to be said, there might be crashes, but the road is quite wide. I don't think it could happen that it blocked completely the road. And if
they did one circuit to get a look at it, didn't they, and then took that decision.
Yeah, and I think if you realize that the road is not too small, that it might be blocked by a crash, you just stay at the back and rely on your teammates, because again, if it does happen in the finale in the last 5 kilometers, no problem, because you're going to be awarded with the same time. If it happens before, I think there's plenty of room to rejoin in the front, especially if you can benefit from the entirety of your team. But the speed is high in the peloton, all in one line, as Soudal Quick-Step is forced to deploy 2 more riders. And this can have a big impact how they're going to approach the finale, because Zana and Garofoli, we know they are the most climbing-like of the group of the Belgium squad. But nonetheless, they might be helpful to, just move a little bit closer to the finish the moment riders such Jasper Stuyven or Dries van Gestel, they're going to be used.
I mean, the sprinters teams simply can't miss out on a bunch sprint today. It would be impossible. It's unthinkable that they can't bring this back. But they're having to work just that little bit harder at the moment than they might have wanted to. There's a strong quartet of riders. They haven't been out there for much more than a couple of hours. So they're relatively fresh, these 4 riders, and they're strong. They're proven riders as well.
2:08 has been brought back at the same time that they had before.
Yeah, maybe that 2 minutes 35 was a slight timing aberration. We'll have to see what happens to the time gap now. But fresh legs at the front of the peloton, as you say. Filippo Zana moving to the front. Soudal Quick-Step reacting to the slight difficulty now of shutting this 2-minute time gap down in this city centre circuit. 2.6 kilometres to go to the Red Bull kilometre. None of these riders feature highly in the Red Bull kilometre overall standings, which is being led by Eulalio and Tarozzi jointly on 30 points. Unibet Rose Rockets, what a strong team they have around Dylan Groenewegen. A lead-out train composed of Lukas Kubiš, Niklas Larsson, the Kopecki brothers, and Elmer Reinders, the last lead-out rider for Dylan Groenewegen. It's a very, very strong outfit.
Yeah, and so far they've been using or deploying just Hart and De Vries, so looks very under control for them. As we getting closer to the Red Bull kilometer, a little bit of a gap opening there. Probably the corner wasn't approached the ideal way for some riders. The only thing, like the position of Vingegaard at this point of the race, not of the stage, of the race, the Giro, is that some riders might have a hard time even following the wheels, because it's not uncommon to see riders getting distance, especially on if you have a final circuit. Is a pretty easy, not many corners and time there you have to speed up. But it's not uncommon to see riders getting distanced by the peloton in such a parcours.
Well, it's about raw power, isn't it? And let's face it, it's not like they didn't have an easy first hour of racing. They've been rolling along at 50 kilometers an hour all day. And
especially this second week was proven to be very demanding for the riders. A lot of hectic stages, and it's been very hard, I say, for the riders. Every time there was a possible breakaway or stage for the climbers, it was very, very hard. So legs start to be very painful for all the riders involved. Flat tire? No. That's the position we said. It's far, completely off the back for the Maglia Rosa at this point. Can benefit from Victor Campanazza, fine.
Just in case.
Yeah.
He's there just in case.
But it is going to be again the very same conversation, I assume.
It's curious in a few ways, Vingegaard's decision to hang around at the back, because also you get out of the corners that there are on the circuit, you get that whiplash effect. So at the back, it's much smoother around the front end of the peloton. At the back, you have to, because of the concertina effect, you have to sprint out of the corners, and Vingegaard's going to have to do that now.
Yeah. So. But I think, again, we saw before was the case of...
let's just watch this. There's a bit of a sprint for the Red Bull kilometre. Frederick Dversnes is going to comfortably win that ahead of the Polti Visit Malta duo of Base and Maestri with Marcellucci in 4th place. That was about the €2,500 prize there, which Dversnes banks. Sorry, Jacopo, I interrupted you. You were...
No, I think they're going to try again to convince the organization to neutralize the race. That's what I think, at least. There you go.
So Jonas Vingegaard dropping back to the car to have a word now. Let's see if we can pick up more to be said. Dangerous barriers. I mean, I think that's what was being said. But Jacopo, you're a veteran of many Grand Tours and many city centre circuits. I haven't picked up from you that from what you see, that it feels particularly dangerous.
Not the parkour itself. I haven't particularly overlooked the barriers, which they need to be a certain types. So I don't know if the point where when Enric Mas was caught up in the slight little crash, it was where the barriers had the feet outside.
Definitely complaining about dangerous barriers. I think that is the point that he's making. And it must be the feet of the barriers, I suppose.
Yeah. If it's the point where Campanaz was talking with the race director before, is exactly the point where Enric Mas crashed. And at the finish line, it needs to be at a certain level. So with the feet hidden in between, I would say, inclined barriers, so you don't actually see the feet.
And that is definitely the case here at the finish line. The last 500-600 meters are with those safety barriers.
And before, I don't know if that's the case, as Matis Mikkelsen having a flat tire, I guess.
This will be a bike change, or will it? No, wheel change for Matis Mikkelsen.
Yeah, let's not be overly worried, because it's 40 kilometers to go. Still a very long way. Yeah,
you're right. The city centre circuit makes the finish line feel closer, doesn't it? It's a strange psychological effect.
And that's pretty clear from the reaction or the attitude of all the riders, all the teams. Seems like it's about to get to the finish, you know. Everybody's there, everybody wants to rest assured they have the best position. It's I think it's a psychological effort that's crossing the finish line, hearing the people screaming. You know, it's also when you're outside a city or before the finish line, it's at 20, 30 kilometers to go, unless you're crossing a village or a town. There's not many people actually watching on the side of the road. Imagine crossing the finish line where, you know, an enormous amount of people are cheering 5 times. It's just eating up the moment. It's like being, you come from soccer, it's like being in a stadium empty or full with people. It does make a difference.
I'm so confused by Vingegaard and Campanard's point that they're trying to make. How would a neutralisation work in reality? You'd be depriving the sprinters an opportunity of a victory, unless...
No, maybe...
Talk about the general classification neutralised?
Yeah, I think that's what they're asking. So just to have a look at the barriers, of course, it's good to mention that we don't know what they're saying.
Yes,
of course, we just can assume, and if, being honest, riders they do complain when there is some sort of issue that can be addressed to the organizer. It's still far from the finish, and if I know that if the organizer can do something to address that problem has been rise up to their attention, they will do something. To be seen if this eventually will come to a real neutralization of the time gaps in between the GC or all the riders actually. To be seen, because the moment where Enric Mas had the crash, I think that the particular moment where they're referring, but I think is in within the 5 kilometer, if I'm not mistaken.
Which they are approaching now, around about, with Unibet Rose Rockets EF. Looks like Matteo Sabrero has taken over from Gabriel Jabir on the front for Lidl Trek. So a slight change there, and no Soudal Quick-Step riders at the moment. They've vanished. That's
what I was telling you. We are at the last stage of the second week, 15 stages done, a very demanding second week of racing. The energy are not the same as it was 10 years ago.
Here we go. Race will be neutralised 5 kilometres from the finish, and each rider's transit time at the 5 kilometre mark will be considered for GC.
So it doesn't.
Yeah, okay.
It's a full neutralisation and not just in case of a crash. So what they ask is allowing to stay at the back. I don't think it will have changed much, but that's the race direction announcement.
So in other words, there will be no timed gaps at the finish line.
Exactly. Not just in case of...
It's not a huge change, to be honest, but it takes some of the stress out for the GC teams approaching that. They're still going to have to race, though, up until that 5 kilometre mark.
Which I think is something been addressed to UCI in the past. I think it could be a good exchange, you know, in a way. Having what I think like the public doesn't like to see is riders completely stopping riding within the peloton. But I think if the race organizer, the UCI, can grant a full neutralization in case of last 5 kilometers, asking the riders to nonetheless stay in touch within the peloton, not completely spread all over the place. I think it will be something worth considering for the future. It
will take away from the spectacle a little bit, won't it? Because we'll see effectively a very small peloton.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
If you ask the rider, okay, we give you the right to, if there is a gap, it won't be counted.
But don't roll in 3 minutes down.
Exactly. I think it could be a good exchange, because for the images, I do agree, it's not... I remember especially, and you do remember the stage in Rome when it was neutralized when Froome won it, and it was not good for you to see all the riders just rolling past like it was just a ride. But at the same time, I think the riders, when they complained, they had a point. So I think it would be much more, you know, beneficial for all the parties involved to have such rules that can grant safety and the spectacle for the public. 148, they're losing ground, not by much, but they start to lose a little bit of time.
Now they're inside the last 5 kilometres of the circuit now. Not for real, obviously, they've still got 2 more laps to go, but be interesting just to have a look at the road layout and the barriers that they have to negotiate from this point. Sometimes it does take the intervention of the Maglia Rosa, the big fish in the pond, to convince the race organisers to adapt the regulations on the fly. Still got something to work with, haven't they? 149, 35.2k to go.
Strong rollers at the front. And at the back, as you see, already a lot of riders being replaced. Amel Gabriel Jabir, Aiko Bastians
moved in, I think, to do work for Lidl Trek. Bastians has gone, you're right. Soudal Quick-Step, nowhere to be seen at the moment. So the responsibility lies with Unibet Rose Rockets at the moment, and EF Education Easy Post with Darren Rafferty. They've taken 10 seconds, maybe 12, 13 seconds, but not much more than that. As recorded images of this last, you can see the barriers in the finish line. They are all the safety barriers. These were the teams finishing en masse here from the Giro A a little bit earlier. So the Red Bull kilometres bonus seconds have been neutralised and taken by Fredrik Dversnes. And the other riders from the breakaway. No more intermediate sprints remain, it's just a race for the stage win now. Can they possibly pull this off, these 4 riders? They're giving themselves a little bit of a chance, but still the odds, the mathematics, the arithmetic is against them. That said, if they've still got 1 minute and 45 seconds next time they come round with just 16 kilometres remaining, then they really do have a chance.
Yeah, will be something very unpredictable. None of us will expect. But here we are, considering this as a realistic option, a realistic outcome of today, as they crossing the last kilometer for a penultimate time.
Yep, you can vote for the most competent rider on today's stage by scanning the QR code and making your vote.
That's fair enough to be said. I will vote for one of those 4 riders who are shaping the finale. A very obvious finale, but not so obvious anymore, as they keep 140. They're riding good. They keep a very even collaboration, and I would not underestimate Dversnes. The Norwegian has been doing the very same thing as Tirreno Adriatico. It's a strong and powerful rider.
If eventually this group starts to break up, Dversnes would be the rider you would imagine who's got the most to give as a solo rider. But for now, they definitely need to stay together and hold on to their 1 minute 40 seconds advantage that they'll take with 2 laps of the circuit remaining.
And it's really on the strength of those riders, the way they're riding, because the parcours itself is not going really in favor of the breakaway, because it's very long stretch and long straight road. So if they want and they have the energy to make the speed higher, the peloton, they can do so. But it seems like they're matching each other at the moment. But you know, even if they will catch them eventually, like, it's still like the most likely option of today. They need to spend a lot of riders that could make a very chaotic sprint.
Well, that's where Unibet Rose Rockets have a real advantage over a lot of the other teams. They've got their lead-out train up towards the front. They've got all these dedicated riders simply there, simply at this bike race to make sure Dylan Groenewegen gets Unibet Rose Rockets' first ever Grand Tour win.
NSN start working as well for Ethan Vernon as Raccagnino Viero, yet another rider displayed for Soudal Quick-Step. They're only left with 2 riders helping the sprint of Paul Manier, Jasper Stuyven and Dries van Gestel. Once Raccagnino Viero has done his job, no one else from the team, as it doesn't look like he's enjoying this, rider from Liguria.
Yeah, they're taking time though, aren't they? 140 has suddenly become 128. And that does tip the scales firmly, I think, in favour of the peloton. There's still a long way to go in this race, as Vingegaard now moves a little bit more close to the front of the race, having made his points and got his views agreed with by the race organisers, and that full neutralisation in the general classification timings after 5 kilometres.
120. As Little Trek disappeared from the front, at the moment they're not using all the riders, because now they want to maintain, they want to keep their lead out. I don't know if it's 116. We haven't used our timekeeper.
Yeah, that time gap is tumbling down now. Suddenly, it's gone from 140 to 115 very quickly.
The faces of the breakaway still looking good. The Dversnes.
But Machalusi, who's not quite got the same power under the hood as he is the other riders in this group, certainly not the Mirko Maestri and Fredrik Dversnes, starting to really hurt the Bardiani man.
But as well at the back, they're suffering. It's not going to be an easy task for them to...
Jonathan Milan already on the wheel of Max Walscheid. Sobrero has dropped right back, having done a bit of work on the front. I'm not sure they'll be able to use him much. Simone Consoli didn't look good towards the back at all.
It's not going to be an easy sprint, especially to manage. And a rider like Milan needs to be perfect with the timing, because he's powerful, he's strong, but he cannot allow himself to go too early in such a finale.
Well, at this rate, they can lose 30 seconds for every 10 kilometres. They've got a chance. If that time gap is the real time gap, it's bounced around a little bit, so it's quite hard to know exactly what the time gap is. Next time it comes over the line, we'll put a stopwatch on it and try and get a completely accurate reading.
So in the last 30 minutes, the average was 52. So very, very fast indeed. It's picking up quite constantly. Don't be fooled by the difference in speed, because they are definitely in two different moments of the parcours. As Raccagni-Noviero also finished his job, leaving Soudal Quick-Step with no option to either waiting for other teams to shut this gap down, or deploying and using either Jasper Stuyven or Dries van Gestel.
Which would be a very, very big handicap for Paul Magnier potentially in the final. They'd be reluctant to do that, so the gamble for Soudal Quick-Step will be that there's enough different teams with enough high firepower to control this breakaway group. Nonetheless, there's 29 kilometres to go, still got a minute and a half. Okay, they've reconsidered now. The full last lap will be neutralised in terms of the general classifications, and not the last 5 kilometres, the last 16.3 kilometres. Let's hope that's the final race direction announcement. What do you think about that one, Jacopo? Seems extreme, but I suppose if they're going to make this safety measure, they need to make it as safe as possible, and that certainly makes it as safe as possible.
Yeah, again, we don't know what the riders are experiencing on the circuit. For what we see, there might be some problem with some barriers, but that's what the rider asked.
Visit Malta team car still handing out the bidons.
28 kilometers to go, still 1:30. It's a good gap for this point of the race, as at the back the...
Marcellusi's in all sorts of agony though, isn't he, now, I think. I'm not totally sure that Martin Marcellusi will be able to hold the wheels for too much longer. Base moves to the front, does a big turn, gritting his teeth in pain. And still that time gap remains stubborn. And as you repeatedly point out, Jacopo, they are working through their numbers behind. One after the other, riders are burning themselves out in pursuit of these 4 riders. It's going to be close.
Yeah, and whatever the outcome, if they can manage to stay clear, wow, it's going to be something amazing. But even if the peloton is going to be able to rejoin the front, it's going to be marked, and definitely how the finale are going to be approached is going to be very different than usual, because a lot of teams are burning matches and riders to allowing the sprinter to have a chance today.
And somewhere in the Alpecin Premier Tech team car, they're going to be pulling their hair out, aren't they? Thinking this was why we wanted to get a rider in the breakaway, for exactly this reason. Uno X Mobility have managed to, and they've got Fredrik Versnes, who's got a really good chance. Look at the disorganisation at the front.
Now Unibet Rose Rockets has finished. Raccagni-Noviero managed to again to come at the front. I haven't seen Fabio van den Bosch being used as a rider we forgot from Soudal Quick-Step, so actually in theory he still has 3 riders, but he's a dedicated leader rider for the Belgian squad. As Nick Schultz also appeared at the front, there is Tim Ton Teutenberg. He was part of the lead that was going to be used now instead. A lot is happening. And look at the pain on the face of the rider as they're losing ground on the break.
Look at the pain and look at the time gap. 1:37 now. This is critical. The alarm bells are ringing louder and louder with each passing kilometre. The 4 at the riders at the front are making this very, very difficult at the moment as they pass through a feed zone, which might account, I think, a little bit for a slight loss of speed. Max Varsjard at the back there. Right at the back, the lead-out man for Jonathan Milan.
No, it's Gebers Gabir.
Was it Gabir? Well, there you go. He's done his turn. So
as well as
a rider who won't be coming back to the front.
Yeah, Darren Rafferty as well at the back. Here is featuring all the riders been involved in the chase.
Yep.
So far, not very successfully.
Unibet Rose Rockets have 1 rider right at the back. There's Nicholas Larsen, who might find it difficult to get to the front and be of use to his teammates, but they've still got numbers there if this does come down to a sprint. Remember, a full neutralisation of all time gaps when they pass through the finishing line and take the bell and go out to the last lap of 16.3 kilometres. So in less than 10 kilometres time, the general classification, all the times will be taken at the finish line and they will be neutralised.
The riders at the front are still keeping the peloton 130.
Another reason why I think the organisers have reconsidered the 5K to the finish line, and they've got the technology at the finish line to actually place every single rider in terms of the journey. If there are riders already, they can measure those gaps.
Good call.
They can't do it at 5 kilometres.
Good call, good call. In fact, last year we had a very specific stage, if you remember, Ned, in Viadana, where we had a crash, and eventually the time gap were, for a moment, some riders were awarded with different time. There was no grant and neutralization because it was hard for the organization to know who was actually involved in the crash or not. As Tim Thorn Teutenberg still leading, but look at the faces of the rider. They're suffering to keep the speed high, and there's nobody's so far has made an impact on the gap.
Well, they're over halfway round this penultimate lap of the circuit, and they've only gained a handful of seconds. Less than 25 kilometres to go, and it's still around about a minute and a half.
I don't know if it's going to happen, but if it would happen, that would be something like crazy.
At this stage of all stages.
Exactly. That it looks so like just ridden sprint all over all kilometers, the planimetry, everything looks just as a sprint. 128, 127, it hasn't changed much over the last 20 kilometers. If they keep even collaboration at the front, if they keep the pace good and high, they really stand a chance. As another rider for Unibet, Rose Rocket, sweeping off, leaving lesser and lesser rider at the front willing to control and working. And this is the moment also where you know, the riders who have a lesser favorite, imagine like a Groupama, you know, they have Paul Penoet, but for them it's just like waiting game, because they wait for the other teams to burn matches, burn riders, and eventually they're going to help, but this is going to go all in favor of the breakaway.
Seven kilometres to go until they hear the bell and go out on the last circuits, as the peloton comes through 25 kilometres to go under the Cinzano banner.
Filippo Ganna, I think he's having a mechanical. Yeah, he's going to have to change bike. Not the best moment, but it's not today. It's going to be featuring Pippo Ganna, unless, you never know, if it's a very uncontrolled finale with a full peloton. Be surprised to see Pippo Ganna going in the offense, but he's now to overcome this mechanical as they 7 kilometers from the passage on the finish line, one last time for them. At 16 kilometers to go, 123. They're not losing much.
Nope. And Macialusi is still there, playing his part. Mirko Maestri, of course, is in his Giro d'Italia career, has been here and done this before in the company of Julian Alaphilippe a couple of years ago in a two-rider breakaway that held off the peloton. Totally different parcours, totally different situation, but Maestri is really experienced in this kind of situation. And Dvarsnes, when he wins, very often, in 6 times he's won in his professional career, when Dvarsnes wins, he tends to win alone as well by a few seconds. He's very, very capable of launching a solo attack and holding off. He's riding hard here, but maybe also thinking about when he might be attacking this group of riders and trying to go solo to victory, because that will, the closer they get to the finish line, with a realistic chance of victory, they'll start to think about how they're going to approach their individual chances of taking the stage win. At the moment, they're just a team effort trying to hold this chase at bay.
A little track has replaces Sobrero.
Sobrero's got back to the front, hasn't he? Second turn on the front.
And it looks like Aiko Basti has re-emerged again at the front. 118 is a big deep, it's digging deep Sobrero, but he needs to be continued by the other riders. You cannot expect to shut this large gap on just one long pull.
Yeah, and how deep Sobrero was going there, surely he's not really expected to sit at that level for very long on the front.
Yeah, and at the same time he's going to make the speed and the pace very hard for the riders behind. So to be seen, he needs to be continued by the other riders, because 115 of course is gaining time, but that's consistency that's going to allow the peloton to rejoin the front of the race. 114 now, they gain 10 seconds thanks to the effort of no, that's NSN that was involved in the chase.
Gebrejabe is just the last rider in the line at the moment. Holding on. Maestri back on the front, Tversnes. They'll be getting this information. 1 minute 12. They have lost a bit of time under pressure there from Matteo Sobrero, who's made a difference, the former Italian national time trial champion for Lidl Trek. For Jonathan Milan, on this big day where the sprinters cannot miss out on their opportunity, they cannot miss out on their opportunity here in Milan to round off the second week of racing with a chance for the first proper bona fide bunch sprint since Bulgaria, would you believe it? So much pressure on the sprinters teams to deliver their fast men to the line here, but this quartet of riders are making it very difficult indeed.
Need to be seen who's, if somebody's keeping up the speed imposed by Sobrero at the back. 1:11. First time we see Tversnes showing a little bit sign of fatigue. Always very composed. It's the opposite of Marcellusi.
Yeah,
but that's his style.
In every possible way, he's the opposite of Martin Marcellusi, who has this very pugnacious style, this very attacking shape on the bike. He rocks from side to side. The more tired he gets, going very deep here, whereas Tversnes is just a smooth transition of power through those pedals. A little bit like Maestri himself. The two smaller riders, though, they're hurting the most in this group of four.
And I think Bais is digging very deep because he knows Maestri can stand a chance to win such a stage. He's a very powerful rider, Mirko Maestri, in second position now, following Bais, 1:06. The gap is keep going down, but it's not yet done as Marcellusi. I think he starts skipping turns. Yeah, that's not something like you want to do at 1 kilometer, but yet another rider for Unibet Rose Rocket stopped working is Aiko Bastians. And NSN, only 2 riders actually working in here. That's what we said. You need consistency if you want to catch the breakaway.
Yeah, Sobrero's done, isn't he? He would have dropped back. It looks like Tim Tom Tutenberg might be moving forward to the front, but Bastians has got not much more to give. And there's some consternation.
Yeah, with Corbin Strong. He doesn't want to collaborate at the moment. But so it's 2 riders against 4. And they're not making an impact now. That's what we said. You cannot hoping of keeping them close if you just dig yourself deep only in one shot.
This is starting to remind me of that Treviso stage, the Driestabond day, Jacopo, where you were one of the riders at the front having to do the chase. And that, we know how that ended. That's in the final kilometre, it was still in the balance, wasn't it?
But that's game over again for Unibet Rose Rockets.
Bastian's back on the front. Well, look at him, head nodding. He's done a lot of work already, and he's not making the difference at the moment. And
who's going to be replacing Aiko Bastians now? Because it's one guy against 4 riders. Lucas is looking back. Corbin Strong is keeping the speed high, but again, it's all alone. Nobody else is willing to cooperate. Decathlon, CMA, CGM, they might have a possibility for Tobias Lund Andersen, but they're not using any riders in the chase of the breakaway. As even Lukas Kubic appear to working now. Normally it would be dedicated at the very end of the race.
And Max Walscheid as well.
It's going to be a very chaotic sprint as at the back.
Jasper Stuyven's moving to the front.
And Fabio van
den Bossche as well. So some of the last lead-out riders are having to do early work here. Kubic is making a bit of a difference. He's taken a couple of seconds. And if Max Walscheid is deployed here, well, they're going to really miss him in the final potentially. But he could make a massive difference at this point in the race. Simone Consoni has moved his way up, and he is sitting in front of Jonathan Milan. And it looks like Walscheid is going to be called to action now. And we know how strong he is. We saw his individual time trial the other day. Walscheid could be a game changer here for the peloton. Kubic is doing a good ride, but the raw power of the German could make a massive difference when it's his turn to ride. 17.8 kilometers remaining. Still the time gap is just over a minute, and the 4 breakaway riders are just over 1.4 kilometers from taking the bell and going out on the last 16.3 kilometers of today's parcours.
57-54 under the impulse of Lukas Kubic and Max Walscheid. We're gonna take the time difference now as we have the chance to see the riders crossing the line in front of us.
Yep, 1K to go for the bell. Tversnes, Bais, Marcellusi and Mirko Maestri. Will they still be off the front of the bunch next time they come round? Will the stage win be in play for these 4 riders? They are losing a bit of time right now. We'll have an accurate reading very imminently as they head towards these big crowds here in Milan on this warm, summery Sunday. And what a finale and spectacle we have got. The general classification times will be neutralised at this timing point. So these 4 riders will make 52 seconds worth of gains on GC, although that's not their concern at all. And then all the group coming behind will be given the same time.
Soon as at the finish line, 54 seems like the gaining time. But we're going to do the good old way, direct measurement, as they are about to cross the line in front of our commentary booth. Here they are.
The bell rings. Is it going to be the end of their brave ride, or are they going to be able to pull off the impossible? They've given themselves a chance. The final lap of this Milan circuit with a decent lead over the peloton. What kind of organisation is behind? Who's doing the riding? Well, Max Walscheid has withdrawn for now from the very front, and it's still Lukasz Kubic, the Slovakian national champion, who is doing a very good job of controlling this breakaway. They crossed the line 25 seconds ago. What kind of a gap will it be when the peloton eventually gets to the line? It's well under a minute now, I think.
As Corbin Strong is also involved in the chase.
I don't know, yeah, they've still got the best part of a minute, haven't they? Corbin Strong on the front, Max Walscheid still to be unleashed.
It's much more than what you see on graphics, as we're really recording live, and it is a minute.
It is. Well, we stopped the clock, and it's now, I can tell it's 57 seconds, the lead over the line. 57 seconds rather than 38 is what you see on your screen. So they've got to take back a minute on 15.4 kilometres, because already one of those kilometres has gone. They are giving themselves a very realistic chance here.
Yeah. Don't be surprised if what you see on graphics is not what a reflection of reality, because this is we've been able to do a direct measurement, but they work on a GPS signal, as Max Walscheid and Lukasz Kubic are the 2 deputed riders in the chase. But they have a fair possibility. They can do it. They can do it.
Well, normally you would say that they can lose for every kilometre 10 seconds, but this isn't a normal situation. This is a tired peloton whose resources have been shredded already by the race situation that they find themselves in.
The only team who's still featuring 2 lead-out rider for their leader is Unibet Rose Rocket, and the Soudal Quick Step as Fabio van den Bosche and Jasper Stuyven are still there, but for Dylan Groenewegen is Kopecky and Elmar Render. 53 seconds. Now this is more accurate than what you've seen before.
Kubic is doing a huge ride on the front, the Slovakian. He's done kilometre after kilometre riding for the Unibet Rose Rockets. A terrific ride. If this comes back, and it's still an if, and Dylan Groenewegen rides to victory, he will owe this man an enormous debt. In fact, any rider, any sprinter who wins this very dramatic finale here owes him a huge debt. He slots in as if he's about to resume his work as well, as if it's not done. And now Max Walscheid takes over.
The back, the riders that have been involved before, Giulio Pellizzari in there, is no concern for the GC, as the time gap has been neutralized at the finish line, the passage, the last passage on the line.
Yeah, little gaps could start to open in the peloton now as riders let go. They don't have to hold the wheels. The GC positions are fixed for the stage. But look at this pace. The Machalusi. Still, Kubic goes back on. Max Walscheid didn't make a massive difference there.
No, then finally Soudal Quick Step placed Van den Bosche at the front to the sprint, the track rider, to help the chase, because they're not making the impact, but it's just because of numbers. You cannot expect 2 riders to being able to close a gap of 1 minute over 4 fully involved riders.
Dylan Groenewegen and Jonathan Milan, Paul Magnier, they all sit there wondering whether or not they're going to get to sprint for the victory, or whether it's going to be a sprint for the 5th place. That's the equation. They're just going to hope that there's enough firepower left at the front to get the job done. But none of these riders, as you pan back, none of them are going to start to work. It is down to a very few riders to bring these 4 at the front of the race to heel, who've still got a 52-second lead now inside the last 13 kilometres. This is high drama here in Milan.
And as we see also, this is a bit of a subplot, but this man in the Maglia Ciclamino, which is not a sprinter,
he will be loving this situation,
because that means a lot of points won't be given to any sprinter today.
He will be loving this situation,
What a
Jonathan Noah.
finale in Milan. This is something like the drama we were not expecting. There's still 3 riders on the chase. It's Fabio van der Bosch, the freshest among them all.
Yeah.
But Varscheild is showing some pain in here. The tallest rider in this race, almost 2 meters for the giant German rider.
I genuinely thought that Max Walscheid could bring chunks of time back here, but look how hard he's working and look how little impact he's having. 1 more second, but they've got to bring back 49 more over the course of the next 12 kilometers.
Because the problem is how many energy they have left in the tank after incredibly difficult second week of racing. It's been incredibly hot in the last 3 days. It's been very fast and very hard, and they're having a very hard time shutting this down. Marcelus digging deep, all the energy he's got. And the 2 riders behind him, Maestri and Versnes, they're the most dangerous for the victory, but they need to keep the collaboration going if they want to stand a chance.
Watch out for Dversnes though. If they get close to the finishing line and suddenly their lead is in doubt, watch out for Dversnes. He's got the power, he's got the form, he's got the pedigree, and he's got the history of winning solo. It goes without saying, but it's worth saying, that neither Mirko Maestri, Mattia Bais, Martin Marcellusi, or of course Fredrik Dversnes have ever won a stage of the Giro d'Italia, or even come particularly close.
And especially in a day like today, where you're 100% sure that you're going to witness a sprint, is still very much in balance. 50 seconds still.
Come out again.
Fabio van der Bosch is not making an impact at the moment, as Max Walscheid has stopped working, has moved at the back, because so leaving only Fabio van den Bosch and Lukas Kubic doing the job. I think Fabio van den Bosch is also a very aero rider. Has put everybody in much of pain, because it's much pressure than everybody else. It seems like nobody else is there after these 2 men have done the job.
Well, if you're Jonathan Milan now, what are you thinking, Jacopo? He'll be seething with frustration about this situation, won't he? He's chewing up his final lead-out train. Max Walscheid has already been deployed. He hasn't got those resources, and he's still not sure whether or not he's going to be sprinting for a victory.
And that's where the gambling come in place, because some teams, they might featuring still some lead-outs. They might be thinking, okay, I'm not doing anything anymore. If you want, you can use your lead-outs. Teams such Picnic PostNL, Decathlon CMA, CGM, they haven't done yet a single turn at the front.
Well, they've 6 kilometers of the final circuit have gone, and it's cost the 4 riders at the front 12 seconds. So over those 6 kilometers, they've lost 12 seconds.
It's not much. And to be seen once there's 2 at the front, Fabio van den Bosch and Lukas Kubic, once they've done the job.
Who's going to ride?
It's only Fabio van den Bosch now, as Lukas Kubic replacing
again, doesn't he? But each turn that he does on the front is a little bit weaker than the previous turn. He's not got much left to give.
Now Unibet Rose Rockets has to use their own riders, as Lukas Kubic try to regaining some energy a little bit. Some other teams appears.
Bardiani, well, they're just trying to get involved in the...
Even Derek G.
Derek G, the GC rider for Lidl Trek. Bardiani will be buoyed by this. They've got a rider up the front. They're just trying to get involved and mix it up and make it messy at the front and disrupt the chase. Taking a position high up there.
Max Walscheid is coming back, but is not a massive performance by them. Is nonetheless impressive, but because the speed is not high anymore. That's why he managed to rejoin the front. Look at the size of the peloton. It's spread all over the road.
Just shows you how desperate Lidl Trek are for this moment. Their GC rider put on the front on stage 15, Derek G, asked to bring this breakaway to heel. 9 kilometers to go, 40 seconds. It's hanging by a thread. However, I would say this, Jacopo, do not underestimate, if they're close, how much time they can lose in the final kilometer. When the big sprinters unleash, they can take so much time so quickly.
I think would be, if they come at least with 10 seconds on the last kilometer, it can be still enough, but it needs to be done. As Max Walscheid managed again to be there, followed by Derek G. West and Lukas Kubic, and finally also another team involved in the mix is J. Kolula, might be Donaldson.
Andreas Leknesund, much like that Bardiani rider as well. He's just trying to get himself into towards the front to make sure that He disrupts this chase to the best of his ability. Walscheid, though, not making the big difference that you'd have expected from the German, as the time gap goes back out again to 39 seconds, and another kilometre has ticked by. 8.3k to go. Jacob Alula now sending a rider forward. It's Chris Juhl Jensen. Pascal Ackermann is their dedicated sprinter. They have not put their nose in the wind all day today, but they're going to have to now. Picnic Postanel potentially. And what about Decathlon riding for Lund Andersen? They haven't done any work.
And the gap is come back at a 45 second. We don't know if it's that accurate or not, but nonetheless, they are not making a huge impact, as still the very same rider as before, Fabio van den Bosch and Lukas Kubic. The Jacob Alula rider was instead Pascal Ackermann, who is definitely not going to work because he's the dedicated sprinter.
Yep.
But 48 is growing,
It's just, yeah, the time gaps have been a little bit unreliable. The evidence of your own eyes is probably the best thing, but it's remarkable that Kubic has had to go back to the front to do, what, the fourth or fifth turn on the front, and each one is a little bit less powerful than the last. Fabio van den Bosch as well. Both those riders being used multiple times here.
44 seconds, 43 is hanging in there between 40 and 45 seconds.
They're still working together, these four as well. They're going to have to, potentially all the way to the final kilometre. Maciusi is at a real disadvantage compared to some of the other riders, but he's playing his part fully here. They are working as a team. It's the breakaway versus the peloton, and it's too close to call right now. 7k to go, a time gap of 41 seconds.
Fabio van den Bosch, Derek G, as well as Kopecky and Lukas Kubic, four riders now, but two of them, they spend already a lot of energy, and it's Fabio van den Bosch and Lukas Kubic, the two riders that spend the most. 38 now, at 6.8 kilometers to go, as Fabio van den Bosch and PDD Tank has done his job.
That's it. We're not going to see him towards the front again. Derek G now picks up again. Derek G West. They can almost see the breakaway ahead of them, but they're 35 seconds ahead of them. That is a lot of road, a lot of distance that they have to make up, and they're running out of kilometres. 6.5k to go now. Derek G West pulls back a few more seconds,
and it's done.
He drops back. He's done. And now we're eating into Dylan Groenewegen's lead-out train, but there is horsepower left here for Dylan Groenewegen.
A lot of shoulders there from, I think it's Freud Vo and Tobias Lund Andersen at the back, the Tudor rider against the Decathlon CMA CGM. 32 seconds at 6 kilometers to go.
Watch out for Dversnes. Watch out for Dversnes. 32 seconds. Is he going to launch? 6.1 kilometers to go. He drops to the back. Mattia Bais just fills in the final place there, getting ever more tired. This is a mighty effort. Look back up behind them down that long straight, and can you see the peloton coming into view behind them? Not yet. They've still got, if they look round now, they still will see empty road behind them, and the peloton is still being held at bay, and another kilometer goes by. The time gap is coming down now. Dylan Groenewegen eating into his resources. The Kopecky brothers being put to use right now. He's saving his last lead-out man. He himself has dropped a little bit further back. Elmar Reinders has yet to be deployed, but it's Unibet Rose Rockets who are being told to bring this back. And it could be to the benefit of everybody, to Jonathan Milan, to Freud Vo, who's right up there, Lund Andersen, all of these riders gambling that Unibet Rose Rockets are going to do this for the sprint.
And they're not saving any rider, not sparing anybody, because Elmar Reinders, the last man for Dylan Groenewegen, is in the second position. Still Lukas Kubic riding very hard. The only rider surviving a wall up, pulling at the front.
Leknesund from Uno X Mobility imploring the motorbike to move a little bit further away and not give them any assistance in the chase. His teammate Fredrik Dversnes has dropped to the back of this four-rider group, and every time that happens, it's a bit ominous. As 5 kilometers to go now, still with 26 seconds and still with clear road and clear distance behind them to this peloton. It's on a knife edge, stage 15. It is totally too close to call.
25 seconds is going in favor of the peloton. Has been replaced, the Unibet Rose Rockets, by Tudor Pro Cycling. For the first time, there is a change at the front of the race. All the teams getting involved in the chase. To be seen if they're going to be reshaping the finale. It seems like a super faster speed at the moment. So they're slowing down.
FDJ United, Tudor not prepared to do the riding. They're gambling. Nelson Oliveira of Movistar finds himself on the front. He's not going to ride. He's got no sprinter to work for. Alpecin Premier Tech now with Jensen Plowright deputising for the absent Caden Groves on the front. But they did slow down, and they slowed down for a couple of 100 meters there. And that itself they just cannot afford to do with less than 5 kilometers to go.
And that's the indication the time gap has gone up once again, 26 seconds. Who's there to do the job? Because I think the energy adjusts at the very end. 4 kilometers for the breakaway as the gap is still growing up. 26, 25 is just hanging in there. Oh my God, this is a good finish.
Jacopo, you must be very glad that you're not a lead-out man anymore. What a stressful job this is, and what a stressful outcome this might be for the big-name marquee sprinters who are still hoping to show off their wares at the finish line as Movistar and Picnic Postenel get on the front. 3.6k to go for the front of the race, and now they go through 4k to go. That is a 27-second gap. I just timed it through 4 kilometers to go. 27 seconds they've got to make up in the last 3.5k, because they are flying at the 3k to go banner, and Unibet Rose Rockets pick it up again with the Kopecki brothers.
It's Elmar Reinders there in second position, then Dylan Groenewegen and all the other teams, they're waiting because they don't want to sacrifice their own lead-out rider, because Simone Consoni is still there, Tord Gudmestad as well for Tobias Lund Andersen, as well as Jasper Stuyven. They don't want to use their riders.
It's a massive gamble. De Versnes, though, driving it on for now with the 2 Italians from Polti Visit Malta and Martin Macialusi, the other Italian, on the wheel. Now Little Trek send, is it Simone Consoni forward?
Yeah, it's Consoni. Finally, they take the decision to use one rider, and Milan has to do it all by himself.
He's slotted himself on the wheel of Dylan Groenewegen. He's looking around to see where everyone else is. Pascal Ackermann is on his wheel. Maris Mikkels has moved forward onto the wheel of Casper van Uden of Picnic Postenel. Ethan Vernon is there. So few lead-out men remain, and one of them, a key lead-out rider, is actually working on the front now, Simone Consoni.
Even Jonathan Arvat on the far left of your screen have moved up to the front. He's going to try to get some points for the classification.
Yes, Jasper Stuyven hitting the front now with Paul Magnier, or just slotting in. He's gambling as well, Stuyven, that this will come back, but there's still a 26-second time gap, riding at 56 kilometers an hour.
He just pointed the wheel of, I think, Milan to Magnier, said, like, just moving there and going to do my job at the front, but they're losing ground as they are about to do the U-turn for the last 2 kilometers.
Now they come round the corner. They can just about see them there, but the 4 riders at the front of the race are now 2 kilometers from the finish line, and that's still a 20+ second time gap that they've got to shut down.
They need to keep the cohesion, the harmony still in there, because they cannot afford to gamble, not now and not yet.
Jasper Stuyven's on the front, the last lead-out man for Paul Magnier. Then come 2 riders, including Elmar Reinders of the Unibet Rose Rockets. Magnier then finds Milan on his wheel. Manicelli's moved up from XDS Astana. All these sprinters are isolated. There are almost no lead-out men left, and still Stuyven has got a 22-second time gap to shut down. You reckon, Jacopo, if they've got 10 seconds under the Flamme Rouge, they've got a chance?
Jasper Stuyven is in fine form. He's taking a big chunk of time ahead of those riders at the front, but the gap is still big, but they cannot gamble. Versnes now at the front. This is something they should not do. They should ride together. 2 riders from Polti Visit Malta. They should not wait for the back. 20 seconds at 1.1 kilometer to go. Elmar Reinders moved clear. There's complete disorganization at the back as Uno X also repositioning themselves at the front. Ivan Garcia, last kilometer and 17 seconds.
Into the final kilometer then, they will believe that they can do this. There's so much disunity and disharmony, but they're starting to play. Mattia Bais moves to the front, keeping the pace as high as he possibly can for Mirko Maestri. This would be the biggest moment in all of these riders' careers if they pull it off. Bais burying himself for Polti Visit Malta. When are they going to make the move? When is De Versnes going to unleash? Behind, the sprints are starting to unfold. No lead-out men there. Jonathan Narvaez is suddenly in the mix. In the Maglia Ciclamino, he's on the front. Lund Andersen, but the gap is huge to get across to the front of the race. Still it's Bais on the front. His head rocking from side to side. The Norwegian De Versnes surely about to pull the trigger. Just a few hundred meters to go for the breakaway. The impossible is about to happen. Macialusi and Maestri, De Versnes, who's going to open up first? Still the gap is hard to close. It's De Versnes, Maestri. De Versnes holds them off, does he? It's going to be De Versnes from the breakaway. Maestri beaten into second place, Machalusi in third, Bais in fourth. Dylan Groenewegen wins the sprint for fifth, but the breakaway pulled off the impossible dream here in Milan, and the sprinters were thwarted. Frederik Dversnes is the winner of stage 15. That was unbelievably close.
This is something you would not expect on such a stage. And this man, congratulated by the team manager Thor Hushovd, won the stage in the most unpredictable way. What a ride. What a ride by those three riders at the front. In the back, Paul Manier, I think he got the best of Dylan Groenewegen just on the line.
Doesn't matter. It's just a squabble for the minor placings, because the breakaway, all four of the breakaway riders, including Mattia Bais, to whom they owe a massive debt. In the final kilometre, Bais got on the front, he kept the pace high, and ultimately Dversnes was patient and backed himself in the sprint, but it was close between him and Maestri and Machalusi.
Wow, this was something like this morning you would not have expected, but this...
There you go. That's it. Dversnes is a Grand Tour stage winner. Mirko Maestri will have to fight another day, and Machalusi was distraught that he couldn't pull off that victory. He may never come as close as that again. Andreas Leknesson, the Norwegian national champion, sharing in the delight of Uno X Mobility there with their Norwegian winner, Frederik Dversnes. Unbelievable.
Totally unbelievable. But we knew they should not let the gap grow too much, because we are into the final stages of the Giro d'Italia. The energy are not there like it was in the first week, and there was too much disorganization behind, too much gambling, too much hesitation of using riders to chase those riders, and at the end he got the best of everybody else, and by a large margin. Was never in contention, was never in doubt that they could get them. Look at the gap. I think even Bais got fourth at the end.
He did, yeah, he did. Bais crossed the line in fourth place. And without the intervention of Mattia Bais right at the end there, I'm not sure that would have been possible. He just sat on the front and dragged these riders clear, and then allowed his more powerful teammate Mirko Maestri to take his chances against the World Tour rider. But Frederik Dversnes, that's a 7th professional victory for him. He was the favourite at the finish line, and he delivered. And he was patient this time. I was fully expecting Dversnes maybe to go long and go early, Jacopo, but he gambled on that final effort from Bais.
Yeah, he could benefit from having the presence of Bais, and who sacrificed himself for Maestri, who got away with the second place. Heartbreaking for Maestri as well, for the Italian, who didn't quite have the legs to match the Norwegian. It's another second stage for Mirko Maestri, been second also last year in the stage of Cesano Maderno, when another day where you expect a sprint, and it was again another chance for the breakaway. Wow. Cycling, eh?
But who'd be a sprinter,
I mean,
at the 109th Giro d'Italia? They are having nothing go their way.
Yeah, just a nightmare for them. They're just surviving and riding across Italy, cresting climbs and enduring huge pain, just to be seeing this man crossing the line in first position.
I still don't quite know how that happened today. We mentioned that Treviso stage from a few years ago, and there was a good reason why that happened. You could explain it with the hill and the wind and the way that they played it tactically. This group of riders just went flat stick as soon as they were off the front, all the way to the finish line. There were no tactics. There were no tactics here. They just rode damn hard all the way to the line.
That's the cold, bloody eyes of Dversnes in here. He just had the eyes on the trophy. Wow.
Yeah, you're right. Manier did just get the better of Dylan Groenewegen for 5th place. That'll have an impact on the Maglia Ciclamino. It was good to see Jonathan Narvaez right in the mix. He doesn't get any points, I don't think. There's points for the top 15, so he might have picked up a point or two.
He was then at the very far back end. Yeah. But let's see it.
Frederik Dversnes, the winner of one of the most dramatic stages of the Giro in recent history. Marvellous when the breakaway makes it. Hats off.
Frederik, you did it at Tirreno Adriatico last year. You've done it again in your first Giro d'Italia. How do you manage to keep the peloton behind you?
That's a good question, actually. Super good help from the other guys in the breakaway, the Italian from Badiana, and Political Meta guys, they were really strong today. I knew I had good opportunities because I'm pretty good at going in breakaways. So this was my big shot.
When did you realize that the win was possible?
5K to go, something like that. You always think about it on the way, but when we still had 2 minutes pretty late in the race, you of course start believing, but you have to think about what to do and what's important to do, and not think about what happens.
What did you tell your team manager, Tuusov, who was a sprinter? He wouldn't have liked what you did, but he was delighted today.
What?
Your team manager, Tuusov, what did you tell him on the finishing line?
I just cheered a lot, and also I have been joking this Giro that I will try to trick the peloton in one of these sprint stages. So I really wanted to do that and prove that. So super glad to make it.
What does it mean for your team? First participation at the Giro?
It's big. It's really big and incredible feeling.
Tusen tack.
Vær så god.
Chapeau, Fredrik Tversnes. Cool head and a lot of strength. This was the moment that the breakaway went.
Yeah.
It was a two-up attack from Polti Visit Malta. And the fact that they got 2 riders in the breakaway ultimately determined, it's one of the factors determining the fate of the breakaway.
Yeah.
If they hadn't got 2 riders in the move, that might not have worked.
Yeah, and Tversnes was the last rider to rejoin the front, and you saw me smiling when he said quoted like a sprint stage.
Yeah.
If today wasn't a sprint stage, I don't know what it will be. But nonetheless, I think it's a team. I mean, after they lost Blikra, this team has been already 2 times second with Leknesund, third with Jota. And today they got the victory. It's a team sabotaging this Giro d'Italia, and today they succeeded with an amazing and strong sprint, almost not moving the bike at all. Look at how composed he is while he's sprinting. It's like a scale from him, Maestri, and then Marcelluzzi all over the place with the bike. But Tversnes is showing upper hands and lower hands, just how he slapped the peloton in the face today.
Bang.
And it was fun to see his attitude after, when he was talking with the media responsible, the press officer of the team. He was not like overly surprised with the victory. He was like, I did it what I said.
I said, just going to work. Just a day at the office.
Wow, this is an historical victory for UNOX. I think it's their first one in the Giro d'Italia as a team.
Yep.
And been ranking up and climbing, in the hierarchy of cycling peloton. The team composed of only Norwegian. What a ride. More than deserved. Not just for what and the way he rode today, is the shout.
I feel enormous sympathy, though, for Mirko Maestri and Martin Marcelluzzi. Time and time again, they light up the Giro d'Italia. They are the riders who, take it on their shoulders to get in the breakaway day after day after day at this race. And neither rider may ever come that close again in their career. It's a bitter pill for them to swallow, isn't it?
Yeah, and nonetheless, they've shown they can, even the unpredictable can happen, even when it seems like it's too obvious to be real. You can reverse things as expected. Not any single change in the general classification, as it has been neutralized, the last passage on the finish line.
Yep, no changes on GC in the top 10. The only riders who will have moved in the general classification would be the 4 who were off the front by 54 seconds or whatever it was on the final circuit, because that's when the time was taken.
San Siro, Stadio Meazza.
Well, there's been some mighty dramatic football matches played there, but from my point of view, central Milan, the streets and the Corso Venezia, has just witnessed the highest sporting drama at the Giro d'Italia. And we kind of wondered, slightly scratched our heads about why did they put a flat sprinting stage on a Sunday when you get the biggest audience, domestic audience? Well, they got that right, didn't they, in the end?
Yeah, totally. It was an amazing stage to be commentating on. I don't know if they got the sprinters as the those agree with me, but that's, you know, stages like this happens and unfold like this because at the back is always like, why would I use 4 of my riders when you're not using none or you're using 2? And then there was never like 7 riders chasing the peloton. It was always like 1 rider after the others. There was a crash here at the back. We don't know who was involved. Oh, this is going to be sanctioned. This is going to be sanctioned because there was a hit with the head. I think it's Donaldson, if I'm not mistaken, number 144. We saw a bike flying while it was, all our eyes were here at the front.
Yeah, Bob Donaldson.
I don't think it was sparked by the head, how do you say,
headbutt.
But touch of underbus.
Well, those things happen, don't they, when riders are right on the ragged edge, and that's certainly the case. That chase, everybody involved in that chase, whether they were just following the wheels or on the front, really must have felt that. Well over 50 kilometers an hour for hour after hour. And right next to the football stadium is the Hippodrome of San Siro. The sport-mad city of Milan, bringing the Giro d'Italia back into town and getting its reward with a stage of the very, very highest order. Going to need a rest day after that, Jacopo. Shouting myself hoarse over the last hour of racing.
Still riders crossing the line. What are they? That was pure drama, the finale. Always hanging in there between 40, 50 seconds. I will see the highlights.
Well. Dust is settled on a yet another thrilling finale and yet another victory for the breakaway as well here at the Giro d'Italia.
But I have to say, I also liked the interview from Dversnes. You know, very, self-confident. He just said, yeah, I plan to do this, and I proved them that I'm able to.
It's so Norwegian, that is.
Yeah.
It's so Norwegian. X-Mobility are just packed with riders like Fredrik Dversnes, who, Jonas Abrahamsen, for example, who's not at this race, who are just so strong, aren't they? They make them tough in Norway.
I mean, already if you choose cycling over a Nordic ski, there's already an indication that you're a tough guy. Much more obvious to ride in the snow rather than on a bike. And I've been myself with one of the most successful Norwegian riders so far, Alexander Kristoff. And I remember him telling me that he was doing bottle pacing under the snow blizzard. And that was 10 years ago.
Of course he was. It's Alexander.
He was complaining because I cannot say the brand, but the brand he was using as a shifting, he was not working under the snow. And I said, why do you even care? And there you are, the victorious sprint, very composed, very powerful.
And I love the fact that Mattia Baez finished in 4th place on his own. He'll remember that 4th place for all the rest of his life.
In the back,
It's a very small bunch because everybody else sat up. Just the sprinters remained, really.
And Milan out of the top 10. I think this is the different implication when you know it's not for the victory.
Yeah, you could see Lund Andersen and Vernon finishing in 3rd and 4th place in that very reduced bunch. Okay, we've got the stage winner and the Maglia Rosa behind the podium. I think we're ready to go.
It's going to be very fast today, as no time gap in the last 6 days. There was so hard that everybody was coming minutes after minutes to this podium.
Signore e signori, è ora il momento della cerimonia di premiazione della 15ª tappa del Giro d'Italia, Voghera-Milano, di 157 km. La cerimonia di premiazione si terrà alla presenza dei cadetti
Well,
della
if
scuola
you did your Fantagiro predictions before today, or made your predictions, and you picked Fredrik Dversnes as the winner of stage 15 into Milan, congratulations, but I suspect you were the only person in the universe who did that. Today was, we even said as much in commentary, 99 times out of 100, if you race a course like today, it ends in a bunch sprint.
I think our percentage of confidence that it could be a sprint, it was slowly but gently decreasing as the kilometer were ticking. It's getting bigger in favor of this rider.
But the fact that we didn't know with 2 kilometers to go, we still didn't know. It just gave it spellbinding drama. This 29-year-old, though, from Norway, from Egersund in Norway, he's won plenty of bike races down his career. This is his 7th victory, but not at this level. His biggest race win to date was that solo attack that won him a stage of Tirreno Adriatico last year. He's also won a stage of his own Grand Tour in Norway, the Arctic Race of Norway. But this is his debut at any Grand Tour. Dversnes has never raced the Tour de France, he's never raced the Vuelta, and this is his first Giro. And 15 days in, he finds the key to unlock success, and he's done it. He's a Grand Tour stage winner, and also a stage winner in a big city, and also a stage winner in a fashion that people will be talking about for many years to come. Today we were talking about the Treviso stage. We can probably put that one to bed now, because if we come back next year, you and I, Jacopo, we'll start to talk about the Milan stage.
Yeah, totally. As I think also as if the prediction or the first information that this might be the fastest stage ever, new record. Yeah, I think the previous, for the moment, is not official yet. The previous record was 51.2.
Wow.
And this is 51.4. So it might be the fastest ever in the Giro d'Italia.
I mean, that.
A record that...
There's so much I don't understand about today.
And also the gap at the end was... because... Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah, that was the GC time. That was the time gap they took in the circuit. Yeah, that's going to look strange and difficult to understand, isn't it? In the
because if there will have been brought back to the peloton, it will have been the winner plus 57.
That's a really curious difficulty that has arisen after this man complained about the course today. So you've got Jonas Vingegaard to thank for the fact that the stage results look really super weird in terms of the timings. Declaring that there was something about the barriers today that he thought was unsafe, and convincing the race organisers to neutralise the final lap in terms of the general classification. It was his intervention that did that. And it takes all sorts of methods to win a Grand Tour, and that just reduced some of the stress for Jonas Vingegaard on a day where his team really didn't need to be involved. It was just a question of him getting from Voghera to Milan in one piece, and he used his influence.
Yeah, at first it was the race direction decided for a 5-kilometer neutralization, but I think, and as Ned pointed out, that they might have moved to the finish line because you cannot really afford to read the numbers. You just have a photo finish at the finish line. Yep. So probably the decision of the last lap instead of the last 5 kilometers, as requested by some riders, has been changed directly by the organization, because in order to allowing them to check in the numbers of all the riders.
Well, hopefully if we do hear from Jonas Vingegaard, we will be able to ask him that, hopefully, what exactly it was that was worrying him. And it won't surprise you, after all of that, the general classification is unchanged, at least for the top placings. Here it is. Vingegaard leads the Portuguese Eulálio by 2 minutes and 26 seconds. Felix Gal in third place. And that is the same top 10 that we saw at the end of the Pilar stage on stage 14. Back in Ciclamino, but bitterly disappointed Paul Magnier. You can read it in his face. In two different ways, that was a really disappointing result for Paul Magnier. Yes, he beats Dylan Groenewegen for 5th place, but he wanted a stage win. He wanted a 3rd victory today. He wanted it badly, and all of a sudden, the Maglia Ciclamino competition is genuinely wide open now. Jonathan Milan, I think, is dropped completely out of contention to win the Maglia Ciclamino. It's not going to happen for him now. So we are going to have a new Maglia Ciclamino in Rome, but is it going to be him, or is it going to be Jonathan Narvaez? Because Narvaez, on the quiet, has had a very good day today. Let's look at the standings. Excuse me. Magnier leads Narvaez by a paltry 14 points.
And it's not much.
It's not much, with only one guaranteed sprint remaining and lots of opportunities for Jonathan Narvaez, not just for stage victories, but for intermediate sprints as well. That is almost tipped in favour of Jonathan Narvaez today.
It's just going to be hanging in there, because every day there are at least 12 points available for the breakaway in the intermediate sprint, and many stages featuring 25 points. And for Narvaez, 2 chances of scoring yet another victory and points. So it's going to be a good challenge, as this man safely and widely in the first position of the KOM jersey, the blue jersey of the best climber.
Yeah, this is a total cut and paste, a complete carbon copy of yesterday's King of the Mountain situation, because from Voghera to Milano there were no categorized climbs. So Jonas Vingegaard continues to have a bit of a stranglehold on this competition, with summit finishes galore still to come in the 3rd week.
But nonetheless, now he has to stay on the podium anyway for the Maglia Rosa, so it's just an extra 10 minutes.
3 summit finishes remain in this race. Jonas Vingegaard, if he were to win all 3, would win that competition by 1,000,000 miles. Well, he aimed it at the right supporter in the audience, and she got her bouquet. Big lead over Jari van der Lee, who will continue in the blue jersey to wear the blue jersey on behalf of Jonas Vingegaard tomorrow. And we'll have a look at stage 16 before we've finished. Not tomorrow, the day after. It's a rest day tomorrow.
Vincenzo Nibali appears at the podium.
Didn't see much of him today, Alfonso Eulálio, nor did his team particularly feature, because they don't have a sprinter to work for. And so if you can call today a day off at all, it was a relatively easy day, straightforward day for Alfonso Eulálio and his team, barring victorious. And yet, it was the fastest Giro stage in history. And the wind was moderate.
Yeah.
It was in a favourable direction. It was mostly a tailwind, but it was not a gale. It wasn't a storm.
No, and this was just to give because I was present. What was the fastest till today? It was echelon day, and sometimes it was so it was pushing the race to be ridden on incredible high speeds. But today they were just strong, and the final circuit also was giving them the right opportunity to ride fast, because there were not many corners. But nonetheless, it takes legs to do something like this. It takes energy. So Tversnes not just all the peloton, but he managed to get himself the fastest ever Giro d'Italia stage.
And this white jersey competition, I think, is going to keep us fascinated in the days to come. It's going to be a very interesting battle between Eulalia, Pellizzari and even Piganzoli on a good day. I think you've got 3 riders at least there who could wear white in Rome, and it's very difficult to know which one of them will be. Maybe Pellizzari is the favourite.
Yeah, maybe.
But I don't think Piganzoli would agree the way he's racing. We'll have to see.
Jonas with could be any more Danish than this with the Lego.
Oh yeah.
With the Lego bag, probably had time to stop at the local shop.
Okay, we've got time for another interview now. Let's hear from, I'm not entirely sure who, but we'll find out.
Jonas, your first day in the Maglia Rosa, sorry, it was not a walk in the park, it was more than 51 kilometers an hour. How did you leave it?
Yeah, it's true. It was not an easy day. The breakaway made it very hard for the peloton, so it was a very fast day. And yeah, to be honest, I of course could enjoy it a bit to be in the leaders jersey, in the pink jersey, and yeah, we came through it in a good manner today.
Are you somehow happy that a Scandinavian won, even though he's not a teammate?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Uno X is a very good and strong team, and of course they have. I know a few guys there, so I'm really happy for them.
You have showed that you are now the boss of the peloton because you negotiated with the direction for the end of the race.
I mean, of course, maybe today was not the most safe roads, so to speak, but we tried to speak with the organization, and they really listened to us. So I want to thank the organization as well to listen to what we had to say today.
Tack Jonas.
Thank you.
Jonas Vingegaard. It's not the first time in his career that he has asked for a neutralisation in a race. I remember a day on Gran Camino where it was raining so hard that he got the race neutralised on that occasion as well. So he's quite prepared to. Let's hear from the Maglia Ciclamino.
Well, this morning the question was 1 sprint, 2 sprint, no sprint. You did 2 sprints, but not for the wins. Is it frustrating?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a disappointed day. Yeah, we really wanted to go for the sprint, and yeah, the breakaway was stronger. We did a final circuit incredibly fast, and then I could be able to win the bunch sprint, but unfortunately it was still the 4 guys in the front.
How do you explain that the breakaway didn't get caught?
Yeah, I think yeah, it's a final circuit, it's really technical, so yeah, the breakaway had a small advantage because they can really keep the speed all the way around, and I think we waited a bit too long to catch them back, but yeah, I mean, it was a really fast day, so in the front they must have been really strong.
Back in the Maglia Ciclamino, it's a satisfaction anyway?
Yeah, it's a satisfaction, but I mean, I'm still really disappointed. The goal was really to take the stage, and I think I was again one of the strongest today by winning the bunch sprint, I mean, and yeah, so it's a bit disappointed still.
Merci.
Very, very disappointed and tired-looking Paul Magnier after a very hard day out. And a hard Giro. And that, I think, goes a long way to explain what happened today. I think the riders are just tired.
Yeah.
Let's hear from the white jersey then. He's the last rider we haven't heard from, Afonso Eulalia.
Afonso, do you like riding your bike at 51 kilometers an hour?
I don't like what I need to say today. All people tell about some recovery day or more easy day, no, but yeah, I just suffer in the wheel all day.
What did you have to do to save yourself today?
Oh, no, it's more to save like the body and not the legs, like stay out of the crashes and yeah, try to ride much in front possible. And yeah, we expend a lot. The circuit is quite crazy also in the final, but yeah, we saved the day.
Time for a rest day. What do you hope for the last week?
Yeah, well, finally rest day, yeah. I hope I enjoy tomorrow our rest day, and yeah, last week, like I I tell all days, I just will keep fighting, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right then, a rest day for everybody tomorrow. And then after that, it gets really hard again at the Giro d'Italia on stage 16. A stage entirely in Switzerland. 4-star stage, just to reboot the race again and give possibly Jonas Vingegaard another opportunity to ride for stage win number 4 or a day for the breakaway. We'll have to see. Valley Road at first, and then the first of 5 categorised climbs. The last is a Cat 1 climb. The first one is the climb to Torre, Cat 3. Then after that, a Cat 2 climb of Leontica, thank you, get it right. Back then over the Torre climb again, and the same climb of Leontica. So a little bit of a circuit in the middle of the stage. Drop down for a sprint at Ludiano. Red Bull kilometre at the bottom of a 11.7 climb with an average gradient of nearly 9%, and it's a climb to the summit of Cari in Switzerland. So circuit in the middle, unusual course design from Bellinzona to Cari, but made a little bit longer because of that circuit. Short and sharp though, 113 kilometres in total. Very short race distance, the shortest of the entire Giro. Rest day for everybody tomorrow, rest day for you, watching on wherever you are, but we'll do battle again on stage 16. But I hope you enjoy your rest day, and from now, from Jacopo and me,
It's ciao.
it's ciao, bye.